So, on this channel, right, both this streaming channel, this Twitch channel, and the YouTube channel, there's something that I wanted to do and I've been wanting to do for a while that is kind of been sitting in my back pocket for a bit. It's called the Player Prep series, right? A lot of people never gotten their invite before, or are just getting into doing regionals, or have gone to regionals and haven't performed super well, or maybe got their invite once but are like how that felt, and so are trying to get it more consistently, more often. This is basically a series that I wanted to do that helps to prepare players either to play a particular deck or to play against that particular deck at a regional. It's something that I really want to give a lot of depth and gravitas to. When I say comprehensive guide, right, that's what it is. Comprehensive, as much detail as possible. So that's what we're going to do. I am literally going to teach you card by card, effect by effect, step by step, the entire Vanquish Soul archetype. Just a moment. Okay. So, let's get into it. Also, I hope you like the theme. I put a lot of time and effort into designing the theme here to make sure that it fit, because for those who don't know, Vanquish Soul is based off of fighting games. To my knowledge, I believe BlazBlue is the primary inspiration. I've never played the game, but appreciate you, TheCaliEffect, appreciate you. That's huge that you're there. Wow, appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoy what I'm about to get into. Yeah. So anyway, player prep series for Vanquish Soul. The concept design behind Vanquish Soul's fighting game characters. So the theme really is about tagging out, like how fighting game characters do in those Dragon Ball games that everyone's playing, the Tenkaichi Budokai, and then also the combo button inputs. So if we take a look, right, oh, and this is my team, Team Top Cut, just getting started, brand new. Perfect. Yeah, no, I'm excited to get into it. Glad you're here, man. So we're gonna go super in depth, super in detail, talking about the deck list and cards, play style and structure, gameplay and win cons, strengths and weaknesses of the Vanquish Soul archetype and cards, price, and then budget options, just because I know that a lot of people are concerned about the cost and expenses that come with playing decks in the modern era. And then the deck list and gameplay, and I'll go over to some gameplay as well. So about Vanquish Soul, breakdown of every single card and their function. So this is Vanquish Soul Rosin and Vanquish Soul Dr. Madlove. These are going to be your primary normal summons, right? These are the main two fighting game characters, right? So we've got Rosin, who when normal summoned adds a non-warrior Vanquish Soul monster. And this is what's interesting about Vanquish Soul that's different than other archetypes, is most archetypes will say you can add one Vanquish Soul monster except Rosin, right? Except Vanquish Soul Rosin. This one says you can add one non-warrior, which I think allows for future support for the archetype that is more balanced in a sense. Like a lot of decks will have the unfortunate thing of happening where later support allows the deck to spiral out of control into a point where it needs to be banned or needs to be hit harder. What Vanquish Soul does is if they ever print future support and that monster is really good and it's a warrior, now Rosin doesn't become access to a million different cards. Like you look at Sky Striker, for example, right? Engage gets stronger as new strong Sky Striker cards happen over time. Now, Engage by itself is already really strong, but Linkage, probably the best support card maybe ever printed. And so Engage now gets better because Engage turns into Linkage, which, everybody that plays Sky Striker knows how powerful that is. But anyway, so Rosin gets you access to any of the Vanquish Soul monsters in deck except for itself. That's probably the most important effect in the entire deck, the entire archetype. So that's why Rosin is sort of like the main character, the number one guy. And so you'll see a lot of deck builds around just fetch Rosin. So Durandal, Rhoda, the Dempsey, right? the primary purpose is to get to rosin. Then he has his on-field effects, which those are going to be his combo inputs, right? That's going to be your revealing of fire, so it can't be destroyed by card effects, and then fire and dark to destroy other monsters in its column. Now, this is a really big, very powerful, very important effect that does two things. One, it rewards skillful gameplay on your part, right? So it doesn't target, it just pops in column. So you can get a lot of value out of this. And there was a point in last year's Nationals where I was playing against like Branded, and they gimmick puppet locked me, but they summoned Albion the Sanctifier Dragon and Grant Guganol into the exact same column. So I normal summoned Rosin because you can't special with the gimmick puppet. I normaled Rosin to that column, and I managed to pop both of those. And that actually led to me winning the game in the grind. Now, they shouldn't have done that. They knew that I was playing Vanquish Soul, and so that was a mistake on the opponent's part. This is a deck that really rewards you making good decisions and your opponent making bad decisions. So there'll be times where your opponent's going to summon to an empty monster column when they should have known better. And then you just say, okay, I'll summon Rosin here, effect a pop, and they'll go, oh my god, I should have known about that, right? And that's part of the fun of this. Additionally, you can always summon it to the EMZ that you aren't pointing your rock at, and that sort of says, go ahead and walk into my Rosin column pop. It's sort of like a lingering threat that they know that they're going to have to play into or play around. And then over to Dr. Madlove. This searches the Vanquish Soul spell or traps. Those aren't really as good. We don't have any Vanquish Soul spell or traps that are starter, at least that have the Vanquish Soul title. And I think if going forward, Vanquish Soul is to get more support, or if it needs cards that are going to make the deck better or more consistent, what it needs is cards that make Dr. Madlove a starter, right? We don't need a million monsters. We don't need a million support cards. We don't need, 6 waves of support like Centurion does in order to be playable. What we need is just a little help. And if we can justify playing 3 Dr. Madlove the same way that we can justify playing 3 Vanquish Soul Rosin, which would be, the only way to justify that is a Vanquish Soul spell card that starts our turn, that turns into a starter. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist yet, so the options are limited, and we'll get into what those options are a little bit down the line here. But the on-summon effects, and should clarify with Rosin, these are quick effects, so both players' turns. You can reveal a dark to non-targeting, and non-targeting does matter. One face-up monster that the opponent controls loses 500 attack and defense. This does work against link monsters. And then you could reveal a dark and an earth and return one monster with the lowest defense on the field to the hand, and it's your choice if tied. So Dr. Madlove and Vanquish Soul Rosin both have removal effects in that sense that are not targeting. What's the toolbox? Very toolbox is what we'll say. And this is just introducing you to the cards. We'll get a lot more into the nuances of the interactions of the cards going forward later on in the slides. But here we have Caesar Valius and Borger. These would be considered our boss monsters. Vanquish Soul lacks like the stereotypical boss monster of the deck, but these are sort of what your boss monsters will be. This is where you win the game, right? These two cards are how this deck, at least in a pure build or a more pure Vanquish Soul centric build, wins its games. It's through these cards. You have Caesar Valius and Heavy Borger. The way that they work is basically they target the Vanquish Soul monsters on field, which in this case would be target one non-dragon or one non-machine, bounce to hand, summon itself. So there's a couple of things that really work nicely with this. So for example, there's a really long time at the start of Vanquish Soul's run last year where people were playing Book of Eclipse. And so you would go Heavy Borger, target Rosin. Your opponent would chain Book of Eclipse, setting your Rosin, thinking that that would stop the Borger summon, and it wouldn't. So there's actually ways that you could use that for your own benefit. What you could do is you could go for your own Book of Eclipse. I'll go, okay, I'm going to chain Rosin effect. Or sorry, not chain Rosin. Normal summon Rosin, right? The opponent will chain Infinite Impermanence. You will chain Vanquish Soul Heavy Borger. They'll chain another Imperm or, like a Droplets. Something like a chain Droplet sending the Imperm. And then you chain Book of Eclipse. So what's going to happen is Rosin's going to get set. Droplets can't negate. Rosin gets bounced back to hand by Borger because you've already successfully targeted. And then Borger hits board, Imperm misses its target. You get your Rosin search, and then you can add whatever you need to. Now, Borger on field, the quick effects are to draw a card or inflict 1500 damage. This is how you win games in the grind. Heavy Borger is the key to winning games in the grind. You either draw into cards that you really need to see, to get yourself back into the game, or you start pushing damage. 1500 every single turn, it's nothing to scoff at. Like 1500 your turn, 1500 their turn, they're down 3k immediately. If there's a minute and a half left on the clock going into game 3 and you've already dealt 3k damage to them by the time that they're drawing their card, what are you going to do? You have to panic, go into battle phase with enough of a board in order to not only kill the monsters, but to then also be able to deal 3000 damage. It's not super realistic. There might be some ways to do it. You know, Super Poly is a really good card. Not that many people are playing that, but it puts a really intense demand on the opponent. Borger, very powerful card, really good utility. And then Caesar Valius, what he does is he can either be your towers or your hyper aggression play. So not only is he really big, but his effect, same thing as Borger, tags out to summon itself to field, which is why normal summons are so important. But on field, he can reveal an Earth to make himself unaffected by the opponent's activated effects, so making him a Towers. 3k body, Towers, really hard to get rid of. Or you can reveal Earth, Fire, and Dark, and non-targeting destroy one other card on the field. So the non-targeting part of that is the best part of that effect. Voiceless Voice is a deck that a lot of other decks have a problem with. Granted, it's sort of been power crept out just by the speed of the game, but this deck has an incredible Voiceless matchup because we don't target. We column pop, we bounce, we non-targeting pop with Caesar Valius. And the fact that you get to choose on resolution what you're destroying means that your opponent then has to panic and sort of get things off field that might be problematic for them to lose. Because if you choose to destroy that, it's over. And they can't feel comfortable because they might have to go, okay, I'm going to shotgun my IP Masquerena here in order to make an SP Little Knight, right? Which obviously you can't Caesar destroy the SP Little Knight in that case because the IP Masquerena was made with it. But you might not have even been planning to pop the IP anyway. You might have been planning to pop a set card or, oh God, what else do they have on their end board? The Desiree that they already had, right? Field spell, something. Just coming up with random nonsense examples. But point is, it applies a lot of pressure and a lot of uncomfortable situations onto the opponent. And also the fact that you can do it every single turn means that you're popping a card every turn, bouncing back. This can even deal with skill drain, right? A lot of decks have problems with skill drain. Well, if you go, I'm going to activate Caesar effect, revealing 3 attributes to destroy 1 card. I'm going to chain Borger, targeting Caesar. Caesar gets bounced to hand. Borger hits board. Caesar's effect resolves, and since it's no longer on field, skill drain doesn't negate it. Skill drain gets destroyed by Caesar Valius. That's sort of like our way to deal with Runic Stun. We actually have a really good Runic Stun matchup as well, just because they're constantly using Runic cards to target our monsters, and we are either like chaining Rosin to make it not able to be destroyed by card effects, or bouncing monsters back to hand. So just something to keep in mind there. These are sort of the sidekick level Vanquish Soul monsters. Nobody plays Pluton HG anymore. That has since been replaced by the Xiaolong, which we'll see next. So I'm not really going to go into Pluton HG too much there. The effect is on the screen. Basically, these two guys, the way that they work is they're free special summons. Pluton's free special summon is during the opponent's turn only, if you control no monsters or only Vanquish Soul monsters in the main monster zone. Special summon it from your hand, and then it just gains attack and defense. And then Pantera, this is the one that does get played, and I actually personally am a fan of playing it at higher counts, just because of the fact that it is a free summon. The way that it works is if you have no monsters in your main monster zone, you can special summon it from your hand. It's kind of like a Fenrir, and then it cannot be destroyed by battle if you reveal an Earth, and then it can destroy spells and traps in its column if you reveal Earth and Fire. Basically, Pantera's #1 utility usage is that it is a free summon, and then it's also an Earth. So these are the either Xiaolong, the brand new monster that just came out. I guess just came out. It came out about a year ago. It was in the first wave and only wave of Vanquish Soul support. And then Rock of the Vanquishers, the Link monster, which is not a Vanquish Soul monster, unfortunately. It'd be broken if it was. Xiaolong is a card that basically rewards your deck for playing properly. So if you reveal a card in hand to activate a Vanquish Soul card, so spell or trap, you can special summon Xiaolong in a new chain. It does not need to be in your hand at the time that you reveal. So if you Borger reveal a Dark and then you draw it, you get to still summon Xiaolong, which is really nice. On field, it can reveal a Fire to non-targeting change the battle position of one monster on the field, which has really nice synergy, really nice synergy with the Mimighoul engine, which I know a lot of people are very fond of. And that's something that I'm currently doing with my Vanquish Soul build, is Xiaolong can actually flip face down monsters face up. It cannot flip face up monsters face down. But let's say I give you Archfiend, Xiaolong reveal fire of the rosin in hand, flip the Archfiend, rip a card, draw a card, I get the monster back. That's really nice. Also, against you, Bell, this card will save your life because they don't get to battle into you and you don't have to battle into them if you were just like forcing your monsters to go into defense. And then additionally, you can reveal 2 fire, which, that's going to be like double rosin or rosin ash blossom, rosin Xiaolong. And you get to search any Vanquish Soul card from your deck to your hand. This is basically just a slightly better rosin. Typically you're using Xiaolong as an extender. I love this card. My biggest gripe with this card is that it is not level 4. If this card was level 4, it would be the perfect support design. Unfortunately, Konami made this deck way too balanced. So then we go over to Rock of the Vanquisher. This is a Link 1, just takes any Vanquish Soul monster, but it cannot be used as Link material as just like a clause in its card text. So that is a little bit of a problem. But while you control a Vanquish Soul monster, your opponent's monsters can only target monsters you control with the highest attack, their choice if tied for attacks. So if you have Rosin and Fenrir on field while Rock of the Vanquisher is up, your opponent must attack Fenrir. If you don't have a Rosin on board, they can attack whatever they want. If you just don't have any Vanquish Soul monster on board, they can attack whatever they want. This actually came up at the Hollywood Regional that I just played in. Played a 47-minute game 1 against Ritual Beast in round 5? Round 5, I think. And what ended up happening was we did back and forth grind, and then it got to a point where I summoned Caesar with an Earth in hand, had Rock on board. He saw the time clock coming up, so he a little bit rushed, right? Goes to make as many bodies as he can, tries to swing. I'm like, hey, you can't, you have to attack Caesar. He gets no damage in his battle phase. Now, granted, he's up by 900 life points at this point in time. So he passes back to me with like 50 seconds left. I end up making Underworld Goddess over his Omni, normal Rosin, summon Borger by bouncing Rosin back, search Pantera, burn for 15. I'm up in time. I win. We're good. I was going to win that game anyway, just because at that point he had like 10 cards left in deck, 1 card in hand, and nothing on field. But it just the nature of time, I ended up winning that. And then Rock's best effect, the utility of it, is that during the main phase, so yours and your opponent's, you can activate one of these effects. You can either special summon a Vanquish Soul monster from your hand. So what that means is, if you're looking at it from a pure mathematical standpoint, Rock is always replacing its own value. Whatever you make with it, it's going to give it back. So whether that's summoning another body from hand or adding a body from grave to hand. So I guess the theory of execution here is normal Rosin, search whatever, link 1 into Rock, Rock, summon Mad Love, grab continue, boom, or grab Snow Devil. There you go. You've got now the body on board that you lost with Rosin, plus the Rock, plus whatever you were going to search there. Or, if adding back is your prerogative for whatever reason, whatever you make with Rock, you can add back. You then immediately replace the value of Rock by just getting back what you lost to sack it off. The only thing that would make it, I guess, better would probably be if it had a third effect that summons from grave rather than adding to hand. But there really is a lot of beneficial utility to adding back to hand rather than summoning to field, which, a lot of like the tier 1 style decks, or these like tier 0 style decks, would have more direct immediate benefits. So it'd probably like summon it back from grave. But this is not one of those decks. This deck is designed around thought, foresight, skillful like interactions, and format knowledge, which we're actually going to get into in a little bit here. So these are the spells. Vanquish Soul, Dust Devil, Vanquish Soul Continue. Dust Devil, I love. I wish it was better. I wish the format encouraged that it could be played more. If you ever play a Vanquish Soul mirror, Dust Devil's the best card in the deck. But really, if you're ever going to play Dust Devil, it should be at the side at 1. This is one of those, I need my floodgate style effect. So normal Rosin, search Mad Love, link one into Rock summon Mad Love, search Dust Devil, then turns, basically what this does is it turns Dust Devil into a pseudo Book of Eclipse, because obviously you'll Rock summon another card from your hand, be able to book 2. It does not target, which is a very beneficial effect as well. This deck doesn't target very much. The only card that really does target is actually this one, Vanquish Soul Continue, because it has a question mark at the end. You pay 500 life points, and then you target 1 Vanquish Soul monster in your graveyard. On resolution of that effect, you can either add it to your hand or special summon it in defense position. This is very important because a lot of the time, you don't have to, well, I guess all the time, you don't have to tell your opponent whether you're adding to hand or special summoning to field. So you get to decide on resolution what's going to be more beneficial. Sometimes what I've seen is situations where I will want to add the card to hand instead, because my opponent, in response to continue, ends up setting up a board state that is not beneficial to me summoning the monster to the field. I guess doesn't happen a lot of the time, but it happens occasionally. And sometimes there's just times where like, oh, you might want that Borger back in hand for next turn. So I'll continue add Borger back. The real benefit of it though is that it also replaces a body. So we were going back to the interaction with Rock, where we go, okay, normal Rosin, search Mad Love, make Rock summon Mad Love, grab continue. That immediately translates into getting your value back, right? Because off of 1 normal summon, you now have a link 1 that has beneficial effects on both players' turns, a body on board, and a card that gets you another body on board. So if you're looking for something in the immediate, you can then go, okay, continue, summon back the Rosin, boom, there's your body back. If you're looking at pure mathematics, your normal summon turned into 3 bodies on board and benefit for your grind game. The realistic use of it will be either to extend through Nibiru, or on their turn, if you want Rosin Engrave, you can activate continue, summon Rosin to whatever column you want, typically one where they have a monster that's important to leave on field. Rosin then search because it was summoned on a different turn, and then column pop there. Vanquish Soul Snow Devil, this is the best card in the deck. I am not arguing or debating anybody on that. I don't care if you like Rosin more than this card. This card is crazy. The only thing that could have made it better was to make it a quick play spell. Basically, you reveal 1 of each Dark, Fire, Earth. As you've probably seen the pattern, every single Vanquish Soul monster is a Dark, a Fire, or an Earth. And then based on the number that you reveal, you get to apply the following effects in sequence. So you can inflict 400 damage, then special summon 1. So there's a free Rosin. Or if you bricked on this and 3 Vanquish Soul monsters that you can't summon because they're all high level, this lets you get 1 of those on board. So it can get your Borger, your Caesar into rotation, where opening no normal summons typically does. Obviously not the ideal hand, but it lets you play the game. Inflict 600 damage to your opponent. Also, this turn, Vanquish Soul monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effects. So basically, this just applies a blanket protection effect, and then deals an additional 600. Because then you need that protection effect. What happens next? The inflict 800 damage to your opponent, then you can destroy all monsters on the field. It's a board wipe. It's a board wipe that doesn't affect your Vanquish Souls because you're applying protection effects to them immediately. And then these cards don't get played at all. I don't even know if there ever will be a format where you would play these cards. I think they're interesting. I guess this one's technically another burn card. It's just a little slow is the problem. Maybe you could side this in if the format justifies it, but it's just so specific. Like, you need to be responding to a card effect that targets, and really your whole deck already just sort of helps you dodge targeting your monsters anyway. So I guess this protects targeting a card you control, which is a little bit better, but I don't know. There might be a point in time in the future where this could be a viable side deck option. And then Trinity Burst, I don't know if this will ever be a good card, but I actually really like what it was meant to do, and the fact that it does similar things where it special summons Vanquish Souls from hand. So like if you're just playing pure and you just hate bricking on Caesar and Borger, this can help get them out of your hand, as well as interacting with the opponent. But we don't really play these cards. So choose your character, which is actually every time that I activate Stake Your Soul, that's what I say. I say, choose your character. And then I'll reveal my attribute. This is basically just the TLDR on all these monsters, right? We've got Rosin. Primary resource generator is an interruption in the column pop, generates resources with the monster search, and is a fire. Then you have Mad Love, secondary resource generator, because what it's searching is not nearly as important as the Rosin search. Can be an interruption with the bounce or the attack reduction, such as spells, traps, and is a dark. Borger, secondary resource generator in the sense that it draws cards for you, isn't really a direct or primary resource generator because you never know what you're going to be drawing, but you could draw into a hand trap like an Ash Blossom, a Bastille, or even the missing piece like the missing attribute. There's times where I will bank on the Borger draw to get the third attribute for my trap card, and I just don't get punished for risking it. And then of course there's times where I get super punished for risking it and draw like an Imperm or something, be like, okay, this is useless. It is a resource retainer, which does matter. It allows you to return a monster to field to summon it. So that's that Rosin back in hand to use as follow-up for next turn, or in order to rock summon the Rosin to a column. Can draw you up to 1 card per turn. It does burn damage, and it is a dark. So these are your darks. We have 2 darks, 3 fires, 2 earths. So hopefully in a future wave of support, we get 1 more earth, 1 more dark. And then Sibelius, resource retainer in the same way that Borger is. It is an interruption in the sense that it pops cards. Towers because it can protect itself and it is an earth. Then we have Xiaolong, primary resource generator because it can search any card in the deck. Is a pseudo interruption because you can change battle position non-targeting, which it works for some decks. Searches everything. It is a fire. Pantera is a free summon. It is also a pseudo interruption because it can pop spells and traps. So maybe there's a continuous spell or trap sitting in a column that you just want to get rid of. You can do that. And then this actually, Pantera might be the best card to leave on your end board against Tempai, because what you can do is Pantera can reveal Caesar in hand, so it can't be destroyed by battle. And then if you activate your trap card, revealing 2 attributes, your Vanquish Souls can't be destroyed by card effects. So Pantera becomes a pseudo towers against Tempai if you summon it in defense, because now what's happening is they can't destroy it by battle. It can't be destroyed by card effects. And as long as they don't put it to attack position with Dragion, or not Dragion, Transcendent, right? You're not going to be taking too much damage. And even if they do put it into attack position, like if they summon Transcendent in the main phase, which a lot of Tempai players will do in order to prevent you from playing your cards in the battle phase, you can Xiaolong change it to defense. It's a little clunky, but it's funny, and I like it. I especially like it as the fact that it is a free summon in the same sense that Fenrir is. So if you're playing a lot of recruiter cards like Dempsey to get Rosin, where you don't want to use your normal summon on anything other than a Mad Love at the worst, this can be that level 4 body that you need. Or if you're looking at like Caesar, Borger, Xiaolong hands, drawing the Pantera could be the difference between you activating a single card on your first turn and not activating a single card on your first turn. Pluton, free summon, sort of an interruption in the sense that it can gain stats, and it's a fire. And then Rock, it is a resource retainer / free summon, and then it's sort of an interruption in the sense that it forces your opponent to attack into it. Spells and traps, Stake Your Soul. This is not a Vanquish Soul card, but this is the best Vanquish Soul spell. Society would be 3,000 years more advanced if they made this a Vanquish Soul spell. Basically, if Stake Your Soul said this card is treated as a Vanquish Soul spell card, Mad Love becomes exactly what I was saying it needs to be, which is a 1-card starter in and of itself, because Mad Love, search Stake Your Soul, can start your turn. Continue resource generation or resource protection, right? Adding stuff back from graveyard. So let's say a Call by the Grave targets a Rosin in your graveyard. You can chain continue to get it back. Or SP target something in your graveyard. You can chain this to get it back. It's obviously not ideal as resource protection, but it is resource generation or retention. Dust Devil is interruption. Snow Devil is both it's actually interruption, resource generation, and protection, which is why I like this card so much. Okay, so now that we've described everything to the more initiated, we're getting into the analysis of Vanquish Soul's playstyle and requirements. This is actually a quote that I really enjoy that is applicable to Vanquish Soul, which is, players are artists who create their own reality within the game. The reason I say that, right, let's actually get down to that argument here. Every monster has exactly 3 effects. If you look at every single Vanquish Soul monster that we did, they have 3 effects. They have something that interacts with their summon somehow. So whether it's normal or specialed, or how it is specialed, right? The effects to special to the board if you're Pantera for free if you don't control any monsters. Caesar or Borger targeting to bounce back. Or Xiaolong if it's revealed. Mad Love and Rosin if it's normal or specialed. Then it has an offensive effect and a defensive effect. The offensive effect would be something like Caesar's effect to pop, Rosalind's effect to column pop, Pantera's effect to spell trap pop, Mad Love's effect to bounce to something to hand, right? Borger's effect to burn. And then the defensive, or I guess more resource based, or, you know, I guess in that case, control, as I kind of put here, would be Rosin effect to protect itself from card effect destruction. Xiaolong effect to change something to defense. Caesar effect to make itself unaffected. Borger effect to draw one to get you more resources to maybe draw into a hand trap. Every single Vanquish Soul monster has 3 effects, one something summon related, one offense related, one defense related. And because you can only activate one or the other on the offense or defense effects, you get to choose how you play the game. And that's why this quote from earlier matters. Players are artists who create their own reality within the game. Being a Vanquish Soul player means that you get to create your reality when you play the game. Are you offensive? Do you play more aggro? Do you like to pop cards? Do you like to put pressure on the opponent? Do you like to bounce cards, Rosin pop, Caesar pop? Do you like to play in a very aggressive, offensive way? Or are you more refined, more controlled? Do you like the grind game? Do you like to play in a little bit more safe, less risky style, where you're playing a little bit more defensively, putting more protection effects on your cards, playing your turn in a way that plays around specific hand traps better, or just like guarantees that you aren't getting OTK'd, right? You get to choose. And that is something that almost no other deck in this game gives you the luxury of. Almost every single other deck in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a script. It has a point. It has a linear progression from A to B, where you basically are piloting that deck in a manner to get from point A to point B. These cards get you to this end board. Vanquish Soul is not that. There is a familiarity and a ideal turn, I guess, that you're supposed to take, but everything that you do changes based on what your matchup is, what cards you draw, what attributes you think you need, whether you're going to play risky or whether you're going to play really safe. And sometimes making that decision is the difference between you getting an effect off one thing and not an effect off another, or the inverse. You get to decide how you want to play the game, and that is something that this deck rewards and both punishes. And so that's why this is probably the hardest deck I've ever played in the game. But I love it, personally. That's what makes it so exciting for me. Every single game is a chess match. At least the ones where you don't brick on Caesar, Borger, Prosby, continue, and then you Prosby into Caesar, Borger, Xiaolong, Imperm. Pilot skills, so things that are required for this deck, right? Format knowledge. This deck has the very limited interaction per turn. Now you get to use that interaction every single turn. But the better that you know the format, the better that you know decks, choke points, weaknesses, things that can basically keep you alive if you stop, where to use your hand traps in order to prevent an OTK. The better you know that, the better that you're going to do with this deck. So yes, there was a very specific opening that happened to me at a YCS that I was not thrilled about. Yeah, so format knowledge, this deck rewards that. Technical play, same thing. Every single column that you summon Rosin to, every single time that you bounce a monster back, are you going to play into Thruster Talents? Do you have to play into Thruster Talents threat? Things like that. Technical play is really rewarded in this deck. Every decision that you make matters, and not only does it matter right then, but it matters in 3 turns. So the better technical play you have, the better of a duelist that you're going to be at this. Now that's true for all decks, but specifically for this deck. And what's funny is deck building, I put 25% because I don't think deck building for Vanquish Soul matters all that much. Right? This is not one of those decks that you can peak optimize in the same way that you can peak optimize other decks, right? I think there's rules of thumb that you need to follow, but the Vanquish Soul archetype has pound for pound, card for card, probably the most powerful engine ever printed, in the sense that every single card's individual value, at least every single playable card, its individual value is going to be higher than every single other individual card of any other archetype. With that, right, it makes the way that you build your deck not matter as much, as long as you're doing what Vanquish Soul is supposed to do. So kind of what I was talking about earlier, where you up Pantera count to match your Caesar count because free summons matter. And the only thing that you can really do wrong when it comes to deck building is ignore attempts to try to make it consistent. If you just ignore consistency, design, or structure to your deck building for Vanquish Soul, you're going to be doing a lot wrong. You're going to be drawing these really bad hands that I was just laughing about. So really, when you're looking at Vanquish Soul, things that you need to be thinking about are, okay, I need to reduce the odds that I draw unplayable hands, or I need to increase my rosin access. I mean, we've seen Vanquish Soul do well at events where it's literally the point of the deck is just rosin or bust, because it works, because Vanquish Soul has such a good going first or going second matchup that really, if you just want to build your deck for rosin or bust, that can work, and it has worked in the past. And a lot of these topping lists that we've seen in the past year have been built around two things: graveyard hate, play as much graveyard hate as possible, Gravekeeper's Inscription, Shifter, Bestials, and then also, of course, rosin or bust. So then keys to success, we were just kind of talking about this: where to interact, format knowledge, what beats you, format knowledge. Do I need to play into Nibiru this turn? Right, I'm on summon 4. I could go into Xiaolong plays, right, extend even further, go really plus. But then if I get nibbed, I just get super hard punished, and I turn what could have been a winnable duel into an immediate loss. Things like that. Oh, Droll. Okay, well, I could lose to Droll with this hand. I'm going to normal summon Rosin. Rosin effect to search. Sure, that's fine. I'll chain the Borger in my hand to target the Rosin. Okay, that's fine. Borger hits board. Rosin searches Dr. Madlove. They go Droll. I'll chain Borger, draw one. Now, obviously, you still got Drolled. That's not great, but at least you're getting some value out of it, right? So if you want to play around Droll, you can do it that way. People typically can hold imperms or veilers because they know that you'll be tagging out. So you walk into an imperm or a veiler, but you don't walk as hard into Droll. That's something that you can sort of decide to do there. But think about what beats you. Play around it as best as you can. This deck does a lot with a little. And so you don't need to have this busted Snake Eye 15-minute turn where your end board is this insane, unstoppable monster. Instead, what you can do is you can make something that's interactive, turns into a grind game, and you might not win on turn 2 like a lot of decks do, where they set up a turn 1 that just can win the game. And so on turn 2, their opponent just doesn't get to play through everything. Instead, what you're doing is you're winning on a turn 3 or turn 5. And that's okay, right? That's what Yu-Gi-Oh! To me, should feel like. Gives you and your opponent both the ability and the chance to play the game, and rewards the better player or the smarter player, rather than kind of what we've been seeing recently, which is, oh, did I open the better hand? Which, unfortunately is the nature of the current format. Which effects to use? This is a big one. Do I start burning with Borger? Do I start drawing with Borger? This is a difference maker. If you draw with Borger for too long, you might not be able to kill when you could have, and you lose the game because you let them get back into it. If you are burning too soon with Borger, you might not be drawing into what you need to continue the grind. There are times where you should have burned and you drew instead, and so now you're like 700 damage off on their turn when you could have killed, and then they OTK you. Or I guess it wouldn't be an OTK, but they managed to finish you off. So just keep that in mind. Every effect that you choose matters, and it matters, like I said earlier, not just when you're using it, but 3 turns later. Foresight is very important with this deck. Playing around hand traps, what I talked about with Droll. Knowing your matchups, this is critical. Every single deck ever printed has extremely telegraphed choke points, right? Now, we look at something like Snake Eyes, which has the ability to play through a ton of interaction. They still have choke points, but what Snake Eyes does well is resilience through that. And so what'll happen is, yes, they may have telegraphed choke points or points that are objectively better to hit your opponent than others. But what they do is they allow themselves to play through those to at least make something more than what most decks do with their choke points. So there's that, which, is why you haven't seen Vanquish Soul doing well since Snake Eyes was printed, just because it's impossible to keep up with a deck like that, with a deck like this, unfortunately, unless you're playing cards like Shifter. And then every card matters. This is true. Every single card matters. Every card in your hand can be something that you're going to be using or an attribute to reveal. If you're looking at your hand and you see duplicates of something like Prosperity, which is why I don't play it anymore, that's actually detrimental, because that Prosperity is not an attribute for you to reveal. Now, Prosperity being a potential recruiter for Rosin is really nice. Difficulty is that you can only play a limited amount of hard once per turns before it starts to become a detriment to you, where drawing 2 copies of Prosperity now leads to a 4-card hand, whereas if you drew 2 copies of Rosin, at least in that case, you not only have Rosin access, but you have a fire in hand. That's an extra fire. That turns into a Xiaolong search, right? Or if you open double Caesar or double Borger, that's the missing attribute. That's the luxury of a deck like Vanquish Soul, right? It has inherent deck building protection for bad deck building. In this case, bad deck building being decks that don't have protections against drawing multiples of hard once per turns. Something like Black Witch, right? You can send a Black Witch or the second wanted in your hand to summon it, so you don't really lose value of that card in your hand because, you know, you had a multiple of hard once per turn. Or like Tempai, how you can use the field spell to discard an extra copy of a Droplets or a Prosperity, right? Something that isn't useful to you. I consider that to be bad deck building, protection, or design. Things that sort of protect against that. Vanquish Soul sort of has that as well, in the sense that these double ups or these multiples of hard once per turn monsters in the deck, they at least serve the function of being an attribute in hand that you need. This also means that your hand traps matter too. You don't get to Ash sometimes when you want to, because you look at your hand and you see, okay, well, the only way that I get to play my turn is if the Stake Your Soul, Reveal the Ash Blossom, and my hand resolves. And so you might really want to Ash Blossom that original Snake Eye, that original Simple Spoils, or that Snake Eye Ash to summon from deck. But you know that if you do that, you just lose the game if you don't draw a monster next turn. Things like that. Okay, so strategy, paths to victory. So there's two ways to win with this deck, right? There's win on damage, so Borger Burn, knowing when to get aggressive, eyes on the clock, and tracking how many turns you need to win. So, okay, I can win in 3 turns with Borger Burn here and here, Snow Devil Burn there, push for a little bit of damage, right? And then don't shotgun your cards, especially Snow Devil. There's a lot of decks that what you do is you vomit your hand onto the board turn 1, and you set up a floodgate or an unwinnable situation for the opponent. That's not what Vanquish Soul is. Vanquish Soul is a deck that rewards patience and, again, knowing choke points. So sometimes I hold Continue for when they summon Princess, because I can go, okay, on the summon of Princess, Rosin to your EMZ, Rosin Effect to search, Rosin Column Pop. Now they don't have Princess. They don't get Flamebridge back. Their turn gets insanely worse. Things like that. Don't shotgun your cards. Use them when you need to use them. And knowing when you need to use them is unfortunately the hardest part of the deck, because a lot of the time you're going to get it wrong. And you may get decent value out of your cards, but, you know, that's just the nature of Yu-Gi-Oh! The trying to get maximum value, hindsight's 20/20, things like that. Just don't panic. Stay calm. Stay collected. Stay calm. Stay collected. Keep a cool head. Be aware of the situation. Be aware of every single card that you have accessible to you in your hand, your graveyard, your field. Keep track of everything that your opponent has and that you've seen and that you know. And then there's out resource, right? Keeping the opponent in check, playing smart, playing a much more control design, right? Snowballing into your resources and then just using that to overwhelm the opponent in the late game. Constant resource generation, right? You get a Rosin search every turn. You get a Jiaolong search every turn. You get to add those back, Borger draws, things like that. Columns matter. They do matter. They matter a lot. If your opponent is summoning to a column where you already have a monster, but that monster you could out with Rosin and you really need to, maybe you go, okay, Borger, target Mad Love in the column that you just summoned to bounce, summon Borger somewhere else, rock, summon Rosin to that column, Rosin search Jiaolong, Rosin column pop, right? Columns do matter. And then attribute awareness. So knowing, okay, I have 2 fires in my hand, I'm going to Jiaolong search a dark. I have Snow Devil set, so on their turn in draw phase, right, I can Jiaolong, revealing 2 fires, I can either search another dark, so like I say, I searched Borger, I can search another dark so that I have a guaranteed draw off Borger that turn, which is nice, which is good, right? Or what I can do is I can search an Earth to guarantee that my Snow Devil gets to resolve, because there is, like in the ideal world, you're going to be summoning Rosin off Rock to search the missing piece, right? That third piece for the Snow Devil. So you have to decide what you're going to search with Jiaolong there. Do you go for the draw, the guaranteed draw? Do you go for the guaranteed third attribute, right? And then in that case, what do you do when you summon Rosin, right? Let's say you go for the Earth, right? So now you have 2 fire, a dark, and an Earth. Well, okay, I'm going to search the Earth here, blah, 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 go to main phase. When I summon Rosin, I now have to decide again. Am I going to search a dark or an Earth? I only have 1 of each in my hand. Where does that come up? Borger either draws you 1, right? With the Reveal a Dark, which drawing cards is nice. Maybe I just really, really need to see Droll against this deck. If I don't see Droll, I know that I'm not going to keep up. Or maybe I just really need a Bestial, right? Maybe that Borger draw becomes way more important. Maybe that's something that I need to be relying on and just gambling and hope to draw the card that I need. Or do I guarantee myself Caesar pop, right? So Rosin search Pantera. Now Caesar has the Earth in hand, the Fire in hand, and the Dark in hand. to pop with. And at least in that case, I get the Borger burn for 15 and get some value out of my Borger anyway. Things to think about. Okay, so these are really your two primary ways to win with this deck. And unfortunately, you don't get to just do one or the other every single time. Really, it depends on your matchup. It depends on what cards you draw, what your personal preference is in the moment. Like, do you go high rolly gamble, risk certain things, or do you go safe secure? Like, personally, in my opinion, I try to go for safe secure because your cards are just better than your opponent's cards. And so as long as you can keep them off of winning plays or plays that will win them the game if they go through that line, you can win. And you can do it in a very, very long, beneficial way to you. I mean that in the sense that this is a deck that 30-minute, 40-minute game ones are good things. Because Borger burns for 15, Snow Devil burns for up to 18, right? You have a lot of access to things that can help you win in time. So putting pressure on your opponent, and this is something that I actually do, and maybe it's a little mean of me to do, but whenever my opponent takes a really long time to think about something, they're just like, sorry, I'm thinking. Whenever they're taking a long time to do something, instead of putting pressure on them, immediately be like, please make an action, duelist, because I usually say, please make an action, duelist. I'll say, that's okay. Time only benefits me, bud. Take as long as you want, right? Because what that then does is it lets them know, okay, I can't just sit here and take forever, and also might make them a little bit uncomfortable, right? And how do you beat good players? You make them play weird. You get them out of their comfort zone. Really good players are people that are comfortable in winning and losing situations. Keep their cool, keep their confidence. Don't get tilted, right? Tilt control is really important skill in this game, especially when you're playing this deck. So being able to play not just the ground game with Vanquish Soul, but the mind game with, well, making him think I have certain things, bluffing certain cards, or, potentially through the gameplay itself or the dialogue of the gameplay, you could actually end up winning in the trenches there. The last thing that I do want to talk about with this deck is, I guess not this deck in total, but particularly with the strategy behind the deck, is you're putting yourself at a weakness by playing it. Knowledge is extremely critical in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Every single card that you know that your opponent has gives you information on things that you don't know that they have, right? Oh, they started with this play. That means that they must not have this. Oh, they didn't search this off of that. That means that they must already have it, right? Every single card that your opponent knows or sees or gets information on, right, that can tell them something else. That's why these really good players are constantly topping, because they've seen it all. They know it all. They've played against your deck 100 times, and so they know when you make this decision, it's because this other thing is the case or not the case, right? So Vanquish Soul, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because you're constantly revealing cards in your hand. You're telling your opponent, hey, I have Ash Blossom, because I had to reveal Rosin and Ash Blossom for Xiaolong. So now my opponent is going to be playing around Ash Blossom the entire time. So you are putting yourself at that disadvantage, which means that your gameplay has to be phenomenal. It has to be intelligent, calculated. You have to know what you're going into, because you're not going to get that same advantage that your opponent has. They're not going to be just showing you cards in their hand just because they can, right? That's what you're doing. So that's sort of where these problems get in with the more complicated aspects and nuances of the deck. And, maybe if we're looking at things that sort of hold this deck back, that might be one of them. So just something to keep in mind there as well. That's also something that we look at Snake Eyes for, like the deck of Snake Eyes. What makes that deck so good? Well, it's the fact that I could imperm this Snake Eyes Ash and stop their turn, or I could be completely wrong and they have Black Witch. And there's no way for me to tell, because they could start with Black Witch, they could start with Snake Eye Ash, they could start with Bonfire, right? There's 100 plays that Snake Eye gets to make, and so there isn't a particular order of operations. So that thing I was talking about how every single play that a duelist makes gives you information on their deck and what they're doing and what they may or may not have. Snake Eyes doesn't give you that luxury, because they can do whatever they want in whatever order they want, and it gets to the same outcome every single time. And so that's why when you play certain hand drafts at certain points of time, it ends up not mattering, because they just had access to it anyway. Just my personal take on why I think Snake Eyes is so good. If you look at its tier 0-ness, it is not the most powerful, most insane deck ever made gameplay wise, like what it does with its turn, what its end board looks like. It's not that crazy. Like it personally, I think Snake Eyes is a completely fine tier 0 deck in what it ends on. The issue that I have with it is the fact that one, it conceals knowledge really, really well, and so it's impossible to make informed decisions against it. The only thing that you can do is hit its guaranteed choke points, which a lot of the time you might not even have the luxury of waiting that long. And then secondly is the fact that it plays cards that have inherent bad deck building protection. Black Witch Descent, an extra copy of something that's a hard once per turn, wanted to get its value back in the sense that, it shuffles back to draw one, so you're always getting value back there. The field spell being able to place from hand, grave, or deck, things like that, where the way that the deck plays is that even if you draw cards that you don't want to draw, it doesn't necessarily punish you as hard. So objectives, right? Turn one, objectives. Turn one, set up your board, get resources early, limit the opponent, right? We can't stop everything. I was saying that earlier. Interrupt at key early points to prevent resource generation or critical points in their turn that they have to get to, or they have to go a particular way in order for their turn to go well. Again, very unlikely that your end board stops them completely. I had one game against Snake Eye Fiendsmith at the regional where I won on my first turn, where I set up, I opened just like the nutsest Vanquish Soul hand ever, and I just had too much. He couldn't play through it, and it worked. That doesn't happen very often. It did a year ago when Tikaboo was still at 3, but not anymore. Grind game. So attribute management, right? Won't always have ideal attributes early. Make good decisions with what you have. Example would be if you don't have a dark, Borger must bounce back Mad Love to make sure that you can draw. Things like that, right? Because you could bounce back the rosin on your field, but then you have a fire in hand. You don't have a dark in hand, so you're not going to be able to get value out of that Borger. Sure, you get the rosin back, but like, okay, now you just have a 2500 beater on board that doesn't do anything for you. Things like that, right? You're not always going to be able to get your ideal attributes as early as possible, so make do with what you end up getting. Sometimes that literally is just leaving a Caesar on board with a Pantera in hand in case you get nibbed. Doesn't feel great, but to have a 3k towers is better than nothing. All attributes available. Getting to this, right, in the grind game is really important. Getting to a point where you can play whatever Vanquish Soul monsters you want without consequence is really important. Early game, you don't have that luxury. Early game, every single monster that hits board is a monster that's not in your hand. That's an attribute that might not be in your hand, and so it could really hurt you. You might need to reveal this attribute, and so you have to finagle your board and your hand and your graveyard to get you to that point, right? Having all attributes available is not critical by turn 1 or 2 because it's just not realistic, but eventually it is mandatory to have all 3 attributes in hand with cards that you don't need to use, right? Things that you can just sit on, like an extra copy of Fenrir that you know that you can't summon because you have bodies on board. That's just an Earth. That's just a free Earth in your hand, sitting there ready for you to use. Things like that, or holding onto a copy of Xiaolong, holding onto searching an extra copy of Borger, even though you already have one, just to have that extra dark in hand. Things like that. Things to prioritize. So number 1 is awareness, right? Know every card that's been made public, where it is and what it does. Reason being, like I said, every decision that you make matters, and so being as aware as possible, as informed as possible, keeping track of everything tells you, okay, so he's already used Ash Effect to summon from deck. He summoned Oak. I ashed the Oak effect to keep him off Flamebridge, so he doesn't have Flamebridge access, so I don't have to worry about this particular thing happening, so I can stop him here, and that leaves him with no realistic end board plays. Things like that, right? Because if you aren't keeping track of it, and instead you're just being, oh, body board bad, I need to out that, it's going to lead to moments where they end up playing through your interaction, and you didn't really gain anything. 2 is consideration. So what's your missing piece? Do you lose too much value by playing around your weaknesses? So you know how earlier I was talking about how summoning the Xiaolong might play into nib? Well, okay, if getting nibbed makes you lose the duel, but not getting your Xiaolong search also means you don't lose, also means that you will lose the duel. You gotta pick. You gotta pick. And if you get nibbed, right, they had it. I would rather bank on them drawing a one card out of a 40+ card deck than banking on them not drawing enough engine to play their deck properly. So sometimes you just have to make that decision. And then also, what's your missing piece? What attribute you're missing? Kind of what we were talking about earlier with the Caesar, or the Xiaolong, am I grabbing an Earth or a Dark? What's your missing piece? Grab your missing piece. Decision making. Know why you're making every decision and what to do if it doesn't work out. That is critical. Going back to the example of draw phase Xiaolong, do I search an Earth or a Dark, right? I need to think, okay, if they imperm or they ash my Xiaolong, or if they imperm my Rock so I don't get to summon the Rosin, I need the safest possible pick. And that's going to be, I need all 3 attributes in hand because Snow Devil's a crazy card. That card is nuts. So even if they ash the Xiaolong there, I'll at least get to Rock summon Rosin, Rosin search an Earth, and even though I have Fire, Earth, Dark, and I'm not going to get any real value off of my Caesar effect to pop, and I won't get to draw off Borger, at least what I did is guarantee that I have a Rosin column pop and board nuke with the Snow Devil, right? So you need to know why you're searching what you're searching, why you're summoning what you're summoning, why you're holding cards that you're holding, and then what to do if your game plan doesn't go the way that you planned on it, right? What do you do if you do get nibbed? I'm going to search this continue, right? The plan is that I'm going to set this continue so that I can summon Rosin on their turn, get a search there, blah, blah, blah. But then you think, okay, well, maybe it's best if I just hold this card. Because if they nib me here, I can still go end phase, summon, Xiaolong or something, right? I'll make SP, end phase, continue, summon Xiaolong, also get my Xiaolong search. And sure, it puts me behind a body because I'm not getting the Rosin that I wanted to, when I could have gotten a Rosin and a Xiaolong search, but at least it plays through nib way better. And SP is also a good card. Things like that. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT analysis for this deck. Strengths, more value per card, kind of what we're talking about. The Vanquish Soul engine is card for card, the most powerful engine ever printed, in my opinion. Just in the fact that every individual card does more than every other deck's individual cards do. You know, most decks have cards that do 1 or 2 things for the deck. The Vanquish Soul has cards that do 3 things always. Only need 3 extra deck spots in your 3 rocks. That's all you need. You have a lot of freedom in what engines you play, what tech cards you play. Zeus lines, Paguska, Typhon, Princess lines, right? Extreme amounts of space in your extra deck. You only need spots for rock. Extremely versatile in the sense that this deck has a card for every situation. So, you know, really you can play how you need to. If you're playing against a deck where a more defensive playstyle can win you the game, you can do that. If playing really aggressively wins you the game, you can do that. Built for grind games and easy time con wins. This is a big deal. I'm going to go back over to the list that I played at the Hollywood Regional later on in this video, and I'm going to explain how I get to a 47-minute game 1 against Ritual Beast and how I win that with the list that I had. Weaknesses, Droll and Lockbird. This deck plays so hard into Droll and Lockbird, it makes me sad. Nibiru, it's extremely easy to play around. A lot of the times you're actually making very adequate boards under 5 summons, and it may not be the ideal end board, but it's good enough. It's way better than ending on a nib token. Super Poly, this punish hurts quite a bit. The best way that you can play around this is same way that you play around Nibiru, right? Which is summon rock, turn player priority, effect to summon, right? Because if you summon rock and you don't use turn player prio, what'll happen is they can go, okay, nib effect, and then if you chain rock to special, what you summon is going to get tribute by nib. If you go summon rock effect, summon rock, no effect, they activate Super Poly. You can't chain rock to the Super Poly to still get your value out of it. So what you need to do, and this is just good practice, anybody that plays Vanquish Soul, I want you guys to walk away from this video being more cognizant of when you summon rock, saying turn player prio, effect to do whatever. I guess if you're adding from grave, you don't need to do that because you don't want to play into imperms or veilers that hard. Like if they're stupid enough to imperm or veiler before you use the effect, which most people won't do. But regardless, you know, turn player prio on rock comes up a lot and it matters. And then the biggest weakness is bricking. Straight up, this deck bricks so hard and it sucks. It makes me really sad. I hate how the most fun gameplay in the game is locked behind poor deck engine quantity to the point where what is it? You're playing typically 1 to 2 Caesar, 2 Borger, 2 Xiaolong. That's like 5 to 6 cards in your deck that are engine that you absolutely do not want to open without a starter. And how many starters do you have? 3 Rosin, maybe if you can kind of count Mad Love depending on how good your hand is, or if you draw Stake Your Soul. Like, this deck bricks really hard. And it feels really bad when it bricks hard, because this deck's version of bricking is, I don't play the game. Other decks' version of bricking is, oh, I have to end on IP with a random body on board, right? This deck doesn't even do that. This deck says, oh, my hand is, I bricked, I don't play. Opportunities. So you can play a ton of generic power cards. There can be only one. Dimension Shifter, Nibiru, Droll, Fenrir. You have a lot of room for just kind of whatever you want. Bestials, right? This deck gives you that luxury. It doesn't play poorly or well into anything more than others. It definitely doesn't lose to Shifter. It's a little clunky under Shifter, but you can make decent end boards through a Shifter to the point where your Shifter is going to do a lot of the carrying for you. If it fits the attributes, you can play it. So Pancratops, Phantasme, Bell, Bestials, DD Crows, Ash Blossom. Trying to think of other just generic throw cards. Prime Mineral Congregate. Don't play that card. That card's bad, but it's an earth. So yeah, if the attributes fit, you can play it. Kurikara Divine Carnate. That's a fire. We love it. And then it can beat anything. This deck does not have a bad matchup into any decks. It just doesn't, because it has a way to win against everything. Even against Runic Stun. What do? Okay, Borger Effect to burn for 15. You're gonna try to freezing curses that? No, I'll Caesar to bounce back. That's fine, right? Now you burn for 15. I'll just do that a few times. Oh, Caesar, pop your back row that's stopping me from attacking you. Oh no, oh, you're gonna flip skill drain. Oh no, I'll just bounce back. That's fine. And I'll pop the skill drain. Right? There's a lot of ways to dodge cards. There's a lot of ways to play through problematic situations. The only thing that really hurts is Rivalry and Gozen, and you can kind of deal with those a little bit. Rivalry hurts the most. If you open Pantera and then you have an Earth and a Fire and they don't have a way to stop the column pop, you can deal with it. It's clunky. Gozen, it's not as bad because Fenrir exists. You can Caesar to pop it, Pantera to column pop, but Gozen and Rivalry do hurt. Fortunately, they're at 1. So yeah, those are kind of the floodgates that do hurt us. And then threats, right? Banlist hitting generic power cards. That's the threats to the deck itself, right? Banlist hitting generic power cards. Like if Fenrir gets hit, suddenly Vanquish Soul gets worse because of that. Tikaboo getting hit is a perfect example, right? There can be only one perfect Vanquish Soul card. We play all unique types. So we play that card at 3. That card goes crazy. We love it, right? Shifter would be another one. If they hit Shifter on the ban list, Vanquish Soul gets worse. Not because the Vanquish Soul engine gets worse, but because Vanquish Soul was utilizing Shifter and has been utilizing Shifter for a year to stay in games, to beat these oppressive tier 0 decks that use a ton of graveyard stuff. So some of the biggest threats to the deck is, oh god, what are they going to tangentially hit Vanquish Soul with on this ban list? And then next is no indication of functional support anytime soon. Makes me so sad. We look at Valmonica and Centurion, the 2 of the 3 decks that were printed around Vanquish Soul, the third one being like the Hungry Burger stuff. Those have how many waves of support now? Vanquish Soul can't even get a second wave of support. We can't even get another spell card or another Dark or an Earth. Meanwhile, Centurion gets it feels like a new monster every single new set. But yeah, so those are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So example deck list we've got here by Methuselah Honeysuckle. This was a fake deck list that I made for the NAWCQ. This is pretty standard. This is what I would consider a pure build of the deck. Yes, you're playing Bestials and Kashtira cards, but Kashtira Fenrir is basically a Vanquish Soul card. He gets invited to the Vanquish Soul cookout. So we've got your Fire hand trap, your Dark hand traps, your Shifter, right? Fenrir is an Earth that can search an Earth and also be a board interaction, which is Fenrir is probably the best non-engine that you can play in this deck. It's so good and it complements the deck so well. Fenrir search Rise Heart, activate Stake Your Soul, reveal Fire, summon Rosin is very good. I don't play Rise Heart in my Vanquish Soul builds because this card is glued to my hand, and I've tried different copies. I've replaced the Rise Heart copy in my deck like 3 or 4 times, and I just can't stop drawing it. I've played 48 card main deck builds of this deck where I still draw Rise Heart every single time. So I just can't play this card in my deck list anymore, or else I get really, really agitated every time that I draw it. But most people should be playing it in their deck list. And then the main package, right? The 2 Caesar. You can play 1 Caesar as well. The Dr. Madlove, the Heavy Borger again. You can play Borger at 2 or Borger at 3. I play Borger at 2 because I don't have enough of an appetite for 3. Like 2 Borger is enough to make me full. 2 Xiaolong, definitely need that in case you open 1 and you need to search another fire off Rosin. Pantera at 1. You can actually up Pantera count. This is a little bit before I got into my rule of Pantera count equals Caesar count. But I actually really like Pantera. The more that I play with it, the more that I realize if you're playing a pure build, upping Pantera count actually just feels nice. On paper, it seems wrong because it's not that good, but the free summon is just so important. It's so important, especially in a pure build. And then 3 Rosin, obviously. So then we're playing recruiter cards. So 2 Durandal, Reinforcements of the Army, Stake Your Soul, and Pot of Prosperity. The point of these cards is to see Rosin, get to this card. This card matters. This card is very important. Then we're playing 1 Continue, which some people are cutting and putting in the side deck or just not playing at all. I think that's wrong. I think this card lets you play 1 through Nibiru, and 2, if you open only Rosin, your best bet is Rosin, search Madlove, link 1, summon Madlove, grab Continue, because then at least you're getting guaranteed searches. Body's back, summon Rosin on their turn, search Borger, Borger bounce back, draw 1, bounce the Madlove back, draw 1, and maybe you draw into a fire there, like an Ash Blossom or a Xiaolong or another Rosin. And so now the Rosin column pop in there, EMZ is live. So I think you have to play Continue. Helps in the grind game a lot as well. And then there's Call by the Grave, because you don't like draw. Also hand traps, just go away. This is nice to use offensively against Snake Eyes if you hit their Flame Burge. And then, yeah, Durandal searches Rosin. You can summon Fenrir or Pantera, especially if you're playing more copies of Pantera. You can do the same thing with Caesar that you do with Durandal with Pantera, match copies, because Durandal rewards free summons by getting you a Rosin, and so you actually want to see Pantera more when you're playing more Durandal. Just the nature of it, right? Because they complement each other so well. And then Infinite Impermanence, good hand trap. You could honestly probably cut this for like a Droll or something, or Nibiru's. Like I sort of view the hand trap lineup in this to be tight but flexible. You can play whatever you need to play. Obviously 1-for-1 trades and hand traps aren't going particularly well right now because of Fiendsmith, so you can actually probably cut the imperms, go to Drolls or Nibs or whatever you think you need. Then there can be only one, right? This is also a potential side card. This card's just obviously so good. You know, there's a lot of decks that you can play this into, even going second, and it turns into a board wipe. So it'd be nice to have. And obviously, you know, let's say you win 50% of your dice rolls, right? 50% of the time, this being in your main deck, that's a win. But then let's also say you're going to play against Tempai, because you're almost guaranteed to play against Tempai in a regional, a long event. So let's say you're going now, instead of going first 50% because you're winning 50% of your dice rolls, you're not going first 70 or 80%, because some of those dice rolls that you lose are going to be Tempai players telling you to go first. So this Tikaboo can cook them. You could win a game because they told you to go first and made that mistake, and then suddenly you draw that there can be only one, or you reveal it off that Pot of Prosperity, and they only drew Regekis, so they can't out that card. I just think that you know, there's some utility to playing that going first, but it's primarily a side deck card. And then Snow Devil, very powerful, like I said. My favorite, one of the strongest in the deck, maybe the strongest in the Vanquish Soul engine. Side deck, Cosmic Cyclone, very good card, just, you know, good going first or second into a lot of matchups. DD Ground, you know, also it's a shifter type thing. Deep Barrier, similar to, it just shuts off turns. Feather Duster, Divine Carnate. This is sort of like a not really well-made side deck. Obviously, you'd probably want to up your talents count or your thrust count, like, because thrust can turn into copies of these cards. And then Kurikara, you probably only should be playing at 1. The point of that being, if you make Hida summon Snake Eye Ash from their graveyard, you can search the Kurikara. So you'd be siding in it going second against Snake Eyes. But this is just sort of like a clunky thrown together side deck, but just sort of gives you an idea of like what cards you would be playing in a Vanquish Soul side deck. And then extra deck, Dempsey gets you Rosin access. So that's also why Pantera can be so good at higher than 1, because it plus the Mad Love gets you into Rosin. And so now you can Mad Love Search continue, detach the Mad Love off of Dempsey to do Dempsey's protection effect. Doesn't really matter. Continue summon the Mad Love, link 1 into the rock with Mad Love, and there's your Rosin, right? Obviously, you prefer to open Rosin or be able to normal Rosin, but if you don't have that luxury, you need a way to get 2 level 4s on board. And if you don't open Stake Your Soul, Pantera can do that for you. Dark, just because Dark and Hida sort of serve the same function. Exciton Knight, I don't like playing Zeus in this deck because I think it takes up too much extra deck space for no reason. Exciton Knight kind of does the same thing and is a little bit easier to make work. Additionally, there was a point in time where at Nats last year, 2023, what I was doing was I was playing There Can Be Only One, and I was playing Zeus. What I was doing was I was playing, instead of the Zodiac package, I was doing a Teller Knight package. Because what you could do is you could make Zeus under There Can Be Only One with that. Whereas with the Zodiac package, you can't. Because you wouldn't be able to link, XYZ climb into a Zeus that felt like it was powerful or impactful. But since I have cut that engine, now that There Can Be Only One is at 1, I feel like Exciton Knight kind of does what Zeus does. Now, that isn't objectively correct. Obviously, this is a deck with a lot of flexibility. So if you like Zeus, play it. Hida, same reason for Dark. She can get you just some free bodies. Baguska is Baguska, so very good card. Harmonizer Gradiel. I really like this card going against Tempai and Snake Eyes, actually. I think that this card is very, very impactful. And it's the only rank 7 that you see in here for that reason. I feel like it has a similar function to Baguska. If you open Fenrir and you get to Heavy Borger and your board is underwhelming and you know, okay, I'm not going to be able to survive a Tempai turn with this end board, well, that's okay. I'll just make Gradiel. Or I'll go Fenrir, summon Rise Heart, boom. Now I have it's a light, it's an earth, and it's a fire. So good luck, right? The Tempai matchup becomes way more difficult suddenly for the Tempai player, because even if they have the Fenrir, Gradiel is protected by earth. If they have Tempai cards, it's protected by fire, right? You're good. So I like that as the rank 7 tech. There's a lot of rank 7 techs that you can pick, though. I just like that one. Princess, because Hida, summon Stake Eye Ash, grab Kurikara. That is the Princess FTK or OTK. Princess is also just really good in the deck because it can bring back fires and does lead to a grind game that can be potentially beneficial. Rock of the Vanquisher, obvious reasons. SP Little Knight. This isn't mandatory. It's just a good card. It's nice to have. And if you play Continue, you can play this to play around Nib a little bit better as well. I do know that most of these cards should be getting reprinted in the upcoming Megaton. So when we get over to the price of the deck, it's already lower than it was a long time ago, but it's going to get even lower in the coming weeks. So just something to keep in mind there. Don't like gawk at, oh my God, SP Little Knight, I can't play. Raging Phoenix Princess, I can't play this deck. It's too expensive. It's going to get way cheaper, which is also very cool because I think this deck being accessible is a very good thing. Bad players won't be able to pilot it well, and so it's not going to be something that's oppressive and running rampant. Even if this deck becomes the best deck, it's not something that a bad player can just pick up and do well with. So if everybody in a tournament is playing this exact same deck, only the good players are going to do well with it. That said, this deck will also force you to become a good player because you have to. If you want to keep playing this deck, you have to become good. You have to learn where to use your interaction. You have to pay attention to what cards your opponent's playing. You have to read everything. So I do like that even a bad or an inexperienced player can pick this deck up, and sure, it'll feel really bad and really hard for a while, but you're going to become a much better, much stronger player by just rolling with the punches, taking your losses, and learning a lot. Raging Phoenix for the Princess OTK. Typhon, because Typhon is powerful and a great way to out Mirror Jade. This deck struggles a lot with Mirror Jade. Typhon can deal with that for you. Underworld Goddess, because this card is good. And then World Sea Dragon Zelantis. I have very fond memories of Underworld Goddess at Nats last year. I unfortunately bubbled out of top 64, but my last match was against Kashtira Punk. And game 1, I just super easy win. Shifted, not shifted. I drolled and then just opened crazy, and he unfortunately did not open well enough to play through the droll. And then game 2, I drolled him again, but he made Pep. So it was a little bit more difficult for me to deal with. So what I ended up doing was I ended up making Pep is Psychic and Punisher. Difficult for me to out. So what I ended up doing was I ended up making Baguska. So I had Rock and I had Baguska. And so over the next 2 turns while detaching for Baguska, I was just summoning off of Rock and getting board advantage. And then by the time that Baguska ran out of materials, I just go, okay, Link 5, Underworld Goddess, normal Rosin, I win the game. And I ended up 2-0ing my round 12 matchup at the NAWCQ in 2023 because of Underworld Goddess. I actually don't think I had a reasonable way to out, because Princess didn't exist back then. The Zolantis stuff, like none of that existed back then. The Raging Phoenix to get super big. So that didn't exist yet. So I didn't really have any ways to out that Psychic and Punisher outside of Underworld Goddess. So that was really nice to be able to do that. Estimated cost, actually under 200, which for a deck is, for a competitive deck, I think that's pretty good. It's going to get way cheaper than this. This is also, if you're not playing cards like SP Little Knight, you can basically get everything that you would need to get. So archetype and like the best techs for under 200. And again, that's going to get even cheaper with these Megatins coming out. So reasonably priced. So flexible techs, somewhere around 100. We're talking like, SP Little Knights, Typhons, things like that. Stuff that you can play, but don't have to. Budget in archetype cards, you can get really the entire main archetype for about $55. That's obviously not including like shipping and whatnot, but you could realistically, based on current TCG prices, I just did the research before this video, you could get for about 55 to 60. You can get the in archetype. And again, that's going to go down even more with these Megatins. Assuming the Vanquish Soul is in the Megatins, it should be, because Wild Survivors is in that set. And then must buys, including in archetype. So including this $55 comes out to about 180, right? So it'll be about 180, not including the flexible techs, about 180 bucks for, things like your Ash Blossoms, your Imperms, things like that. And then the archetype cards, plus an extra 100 off the flexible techs. So you can get everything that you need for under 200. For under 300, you can get everything that you want. So I guess that's nice. And again, that's going to go down even further. So now I'm going to go over to do some gameplay to kind of show you. Timed out due to inactivity. Whoops. So first, I'm going to take you to gameplay of the deck itself on more of a pure structure. Then I'm going to take you to my Saki build here that I played for the regional, because I think it's a lot of fun and has a lot of synergies. So I've got like a ton of... Yep, this seems about right. Ton of Vanquish Soul stuff just sitting around. So we'll go to Solomon, and I'll just run some hands. So we'll say we go first here, right? Whoops, I forgot to change my default. Okay, when I do that, there we go. Okay, so here we go. This is an incredible Vanquish Soul hand. This is exactly what we want to see, right? We get our free summon off Fenrir. Boom, that's what we like. I'm not going to search with Fenrir yet, because the search that I pick matters here, and it matters a lot, just because of the nature of Droll existing. So now I have to decide, okay, I could Fenrir search, I can Duradol search for fire, I could Rosin normal to search, I could Mad Love search. What am I going to pick here? Believe it or not, I'm going to pick Mad Love search. I'm going to normal summon the Mad Love. Now, you might be like, oh my god, what are you doing? Rosin best search, why? Reason being, I think this is the best pick overall for if I get trolled, and I know that I'm going to be getting Rosin on board anyway. So here what I can do is I'm going to search. If they Imperm or Ash this, I can probably understand that they don't have Droll. I can say, okay, you wouldn't Imperm or Ash this card unless you don't have a Droll and you're trying to keep me off of like Snow Devil, or if you just have no idea what you're doing. So they're either a player that you have an advantage against because they don't know anything, or a player that is telegraphing that they don't have Droll, because this is, why would you ever stop this search if you have Droll in hand? But we're going to search here. We're going to go ahead and grab Snow Devil, because if I get Drolled here, Snow Devil at least guarantees me that I'm going to be getting my pops, right? Because I can link one into Rock here, add Mad Love back, and then on their turn, Rosin summon, grab like Border or Caesar, get my attributes, and if I don't get some value out of my Snow Devil because of getting Drolled, then boom. If I don't get Drolled, then okay, so that didn't get Drolled, perfect. We're gonna go Fenrir effect, and there is my Earth, right? So that's nice. Boom. as my Earth. I'm happy. Now I have all 3 attributes in hand. Life is good. Durandal. Grabbing Rosin. Just because it's an extra fire in hand. So there was some argument to grabbing Rise Heart off the Fenrir search because, oh, 2 fires. It makes the Xiaolong search a lot more comfortable. Doesn't really matter all that much. You're kind of going to see why here. Rock effect to special. Boom. Declare. Now here we get to add whatever we want, right? So there's argument to adding Caesar in the sense that getting your guaranteed pops is nice. There's argument to adding Xiaolong because you can, add the Rosin back, link 2 into SP or something, get your 2 fires. What I'm going to end up doing here actually is, let's see, how many summons do I have? I have 1 summon, 2 summon, 3 summon, 4 summon. We're going to add Caesar. All right. So now what we can do is I'm going to bounce this back. I'm going to Caesar target the Rosin. So declare, target Rosin to hand. Special summon. I have now played into Nib. If I get nibbed here, what ends up happening is I just go, okay, I'm going to chain, reveal Earth. I'm fine, right? This doesn't go away. I lose my Rock and I lose my Fenrir, but that's actually not the end of the world because Snow Devil's going to pop Fenrir and Rock anyway. And now Rock's engraved for me to Magnum Hut with. So I can Magnum Hut, get advantage. I can either search the second copy of my dragon of Caesar Valius for another Earth, or I can search, which is what I should do, Druid Swarm to get the Dark in hand, right? So this is the safe play, right? Now, obviously, there was more optimal plays to go through. I could have started with Rosin plays in order to get draws or searches off of Xiaolong. There was more advantageous plays to make in the sense that there was a higher ceiling to attain with the turn that we took. So I guess we can go back and do that. But this is, to me, I'm looking at this, I'm saying this is the safest through Droll and Nib, 2 cards that absolutely threaten the ability of this deck to play. Here, what do I have? I have a card that can either make itself a Towers or pop anything on the field as a quick effect. I have a Fenrir. I mean, everyone knows how good that card is. I have something that can nuke all monsters you control, burn for 16, and summon this Rosin from my hand. And I have this to add a Dark back or summon a Rosin from hand if something happens to this, God forbid, right? Like I've got, this is a pretty good board, and it doesn't look oppressive or terrifying. This is interactive. This is interesting because now I have a bunch of decisions that I have to make that will either win or lose me the game, unless they break, in which case then I just win anyway. So let's go back, right? Let's go back to what this hand was before I took my turn, and let's say I don't respect Nibiru or Droll at all. Oh, whoops. Extra deck. Top of deck. Let's go. Top of deck. Top of deck. 2 hand. All right. I'm deciding, you know what? I don't think they're playing Nib or Droll. It's game 1. Those cards aren't in main decks that much right now. We're going to go for it. All right. We're going to go special summon Fenrir. Still a couple things to consider. All right. I could try to bluff that I'm playing Kashtira and attempt to go Fenrir Search to force out an Imperm or an Ash Blossom. Could do that, right? I could also Durandal, targeting Fenrir, use its effect, right? That'll force out an Ash, for sure. I want you to take a moment, think, what would you do between these 2 plays? Because obviously you don't want them to Ash your Rosin or your Mad Love. What would you prefer they hit? Just take a couple seconds. You can pause the video if you need to. You can't pause the stream, but I'm going to put this into a YouTube video. Okay, so here's what I would do. I would use the Durandal here. Reason being, I already have Rosin. If I didn't have Rosin, I do the Fenrir search to try to guarantee myself some value here, but I already have Rosin. I should be good. So I'm going to use this because this says this is going to get me to Rosin, and somebody that knows this matchup is saying, ooh, Rosin bad. No, don't want him to have that. I'm going to waste my Ash Blossom on it. Okay, that's fine. We're going to Fenrir search. Right, and here, now we have to think again. Okay, well, do we grab what we grabbed last time in the guaranteed Earth? Because we still have the Mad Love, gets us all 3 attributes. We can feel comfortable and safe. Sure, that's if you want to feel safe, if you feel a little bit uncomfortable now. Or you can do the quote-unquote greedy play, which is grabbing Rise Heart. All right, so now we go ahead and we normal summon Rosin. Declare effect. We're going to add the Xiaolong to hand. Where are you? Xiaolong. All right. Declare, revealing the fire to special summon. Or sorry, to make it that it can't be destroyed by card effects. In a new chain, declare Xiaolong, effect to special summon itself. Link 1. Rock effect to add from grave. We're going to add this back to hand. And declare, revealing fire and fire to add whatever we want. So again, now the decision comes back up. We can add Snow Devil, right? We have 2 attributes. We can search the 3rd attribute or a Borger on the draw phase. Feels comfortable. This is the exact situation I was talking about on the slideshow. Second option is we can grab Continue, right? We can grab Continue. I can link 2 here into like an SP Little Knight and be comfortable there. I currently have not played into Nibiru yet because this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So I could choose to play into Nibiru, summon Rise Heart, make Gradiel, which I just think, personally, I think that's just objectively wrong. Because you'd rather have the 2 fire in hand to search off of the Xiaolong. Or we can grab like a Borger or a Caesar. So like if I grab Caesar here, I'm grabbing a guaranteed attribute. We can do what we did last time, which was try to protect against Nib. The issue being here is that with this play line that we've committed to, getting nibbed is a lot worse because now our end board gets considerably worse if we do that. It was a lot more secure last time. We really need this Xiaolong search to go through on next turn to really get as much value as possible to hit that peak I was talking about of like maximum value. So I think the Caesar search there doesn't really do anything because that's more of like your safety play for if you're trying to play around Nib. Snow Devil for the obvious like power of that card. I mean, this card is the board nuke. Or Borger, right? Borger bounce back Xiaolong. So let's say we're going as greedy as possible, right? Trap is nice and all, but I just really want cards in hand. Here we can go. I don't care about Nibiru. We're going to target Xiaolong, put this back to hand to special summon Borger. I'm going to declare, reveal a dark to draw 1. And boom, there's another Durandal. Doesn't do anything for me. I got punished for trying to get greedy there. If this ended up being the Snow Devil trap, wow, I'm good at this game. So here, now the decision becomes a little bit more complicated. Now we can go, okay, do we make Gradiel here? Because this is considerably less powerful than the Xiaolong on board, where we need the 2 searches. I say no, because we can just get the Xiaolong search on their draw phase anyway, right? I'm going to set this card to bluff, because bluffing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is important. My opponent's going to be spending their turn thinking about whether or not this is an Imperm, or a Tikaboo, or something potentially detrimental. Maybe it's Snow Devil, maybe it's Continue, right? They don't know what this card is. I don't need this card next turn. I've already got my Rosin access. I don't care. So I'm going to set this as a bluff, potentially to make my opponent think more than they would need to think outside of that. Because again, this deck rewards making your opponent overthink things, making them make mistakes, making good players play weird is how you win, especially with this deck. And then in their draw phase, so let's pass over to them, their draw phase. I'll just go quick effect Borger. We'll reveal a dark again to draw 1. Boom. There's 2 fire. Okay. Activate Xiaolong effect. See, now if I had summoned the Gradiel, I actually was better off because I drew this fire, the second fire for turn. So Xiaolong wouldn't have gotten punished. I couldn't have known that. So this is one of those things where like it's high rolly, it's risky. You can do it and hope to bank well, or you can do sort of the smart safe plays. So Xiaolong effect, because I revealed to summon, still in draw phase, declare, reveal the Rise Heart and the Rosin. The reason why we do not reveal the Xiaolong is because they already know we have Rise Heart. They already know we have Rosin. I got into this earlier. Knowledge is very important. I now have 2 cards in hand. Actually, no, because I revealed the Dr. Madlove. I have 2 cards in hand that they have no clue what it is. They don't know they don't know I have the Xiaolong that I just drew. They don't know that I have this Magnum Hut because I haven't given them any information about me having Magnum Hut. So this is 2 cards in hand that they are now having to also think about playing around. They might not even be thinking Bestial Magnum Hut. So when you drop it on them, boom, you're good. Hey, that's a Bestial. That's great. So we'll reveal 2 fire. We'll reveal the Rise Heart and the Rosin. Effect to search. And there is our missing attribute. Right? Now, obviously, we don't have the Snow Devil to reward the missing attribute, but what we will do, and what we do have, is in their main phase, they'll start with like, I don't know, Bonfire, or normal summon Snake Eye Ash, right? Or Black Witch Send to summon. I'm sorry, to set from deck. Sure, yeah, I'll chain this and I'll summon Rosin here. They resolve, they set in a new chain, trigger effect, Rosin effect to search. They've got nothing, sure. I will add, in this case, well, let's take a moment. What should I add? Now, for an experienced Vanquish Soul player, it should be very obvious. For somebody that's been really absorbing what I've been telling you, it should be very obvious. But for somebody that's out of practice or getting new to the deck, might not be obvious right away. Here, what are we missing? Yes, we have all 3 attributes. But whose effect haven't we activated yet? We've activated Borger. We've activated Xiaolong to search. Rosin hasn't activated its Column Pop, but what do we need for that? We need a Dark and a Fire, which we have. So who haven't we used it? We have used Mad Love, which we won't be able to summon this turn just because we don't have Snow Devil and we've already used Rock. Well, we still have Caesar. We can summon Caesar. So what are Caesar's effects? Earth, make it unaffected. Earth, Fire, Dark, destroy a card. How do we get value out of Caesar Valius? We search an Earth. That's what we do. Attributes matter. Attribute count matters. And here, we can search another Caesar, or we can search Pantera, right? I don't think it matters. I personally would take Pantera here, just because in the event that your board gets broken, having the free summon of Pantera is really nice for follow-up. There is an argument to getting the second Caesar, just knowledge reasons. Like if you add Caesar, oh wait, they saw me add this off of Xiaolong. Never mind. Yeah, there's no benefit to that other than, maybe you want the tag out on your follow-up turn more than you want the free summon. But so here we now have only 3 forms of interaction, which is not as great as 4 forms with the tracker, which we could have gotten. We have the Rosin Column Pop into their EMZ, which can be very good depending on the matchup. We have Fenrir to banish a card, always very good. And we have Caesar to pop a card. And then we sort of have interaction with Magnum Hunt, which, depending on the matchup, can be better than others. So I guess a good example would be Rosin Column Pop here. Maybe they threaten the Rosin with something that makes you uncomfortable. You can always Caesar bounce it back. You might not always get value off of this Rosin Pop. That's fine. Typically what you should be bouncing is Xiaolong, just because you can get more for it later, or you can bounce it back and then summon it in that turn. But since we've already summoned Xiaolong this turn, there isn't really like a correct bounce here. I guess it does come down to situation. What cards are they playing? Are they threatening anything? Objectively, Borger's the best bounce because you haven't used his effect to bounce back from field to hand yet. So in the turn, you could go Caesar, bounce back Borger. And then if Rosin gets threatened there, you can Borger bounce back Rosin. That's probably what you're going to end up doing, but who knows? Maybe this is a situation where you do want to bounce back the Rosin and keep both of these on board. But yeah, so this is your end board. You have 2 cards in hand that they don't know, only one of which is actually a playable card, but can be a very playable card depending on circumstances. You have something that's going to make them think and maybe play weird and wrong, and them playing weird might be the difference between your Caesar pop and your Rosin pop and your Fenrir banish and your Magnum Hunt banish to summon, winning you the game versus, this not very oppressive end board losing you a game because you don't have your trap. Something to think about. So if we compare this to what we had with the trap card, it looks a little something different, right? So this Durandal is in the top of deck. We don't have this. So we have 1 less card in hand. We obviously can't guarantee that we drew the Xiaolong or anything like that. We don't have Borger. We would be searching Xiaolong on their turn still with the Rosin, but we have something that looks more along the lines of Pantera. So this was there. Pantera's top of deck. Looks more along the lines of, Fenrir was in hand. We had a second copy of Fenrir. That's right. Looks more along the lines of this, right? So what are we doing with this, right? Might not look as good as the previous one, but by playing around Droll and around Nib, what we ended up getting was still get our free Caesar pop a card, and we get it earlier in the turn without having to rely on searches that might not go through. We have Fenrir still. We have perfect attribute lineup for anything that we want to do with our turn. We have Snow Devil to reveal 3. I think this wasn't great, but we'd be adding it back with Rock. So we're good because we can always Rock effect, special Rosin, search the other fire, search the Xiaolong, or we can search the border. So like, for example, let's go effect. I don't get to play as much in their draw phase, but that can be fine. Rosin, declare. We'll search heavy Borger. Borger target Rosin after I column pop something that they summoned here. Like let's say they make Anima, just to make sure that I get value out of the Rosin. I'll go, yeah, summon to the Anima zone so they don't have 2 monsters on board. Then we'll bounce back to summon there. And now we can just go, okay, here's a go. There's a draw, right? Boom. And there's the other fire. And we even searched our deck and we drew that. This card's glued to my hand. There's the other fire. So we can feel a little bit more comfortable later on in the duel, being like, okay, I have this fire that I will absolutely not be summoning at any point unless I get really desperate. So this is just guaranteed dead weight in my hand, but that's not dead weight because it's a fire I can reveal. Same as this Fenrir here. It is just an earth. I have an earth and a fire guaranteed at all times for the rest of the duel, which is very comforting. And I don't even need these to be something useful. Because what do I have? I have a pop. I can pop any card, non-targeting. I have a Fenrir banish. I have a Magnum Hut banish. So that's 3 forms of interaction. Plus a board nuke. I mean, that's pretty good, right? So we compared the 4 forms of interaction that we had in the previous duel, which was, and I guess we can kind of count Rosin as a 4th form of interaction. It's a little bit clunkier, but we still technically get 4 with Rosin. So this, the Rosin column pop, the Magnum Hut, and then our 5th interaction is Snow Devil. So we went through 2 different lines, right? We went through the line of play around Nib, play around Droll, plays safely, and it might not be as gas or as like objectively powerful in like literal value ceiling as other plays could have been. And you know, obviously I'm looking at this from the bias of I could have made alternate plays or other safety plays in the previous turn of going greedy, where I could have been like, okay, I've been greedy enough up to this point, I'll just go for my safety picks now. You can do that. So maybe you go back to that previous greedy turn and you say, okay, well, this is the point where I would have stopped going greedy. And if you want to go back and watch, you can say, hey, this decision point, I would have made this decision differently. I would have grabbed this card instead. And you know what? You could have been right. You could have been wrong. Depends on what is going on here. And if you know what's going on here. But yeah, personally, I think this would be better because it played through the draw better and I get my board nuke. The previous turn, I could have ended up with this as well if I had played it differently, but I went for like maximum optimal, as greedy as possible. And we still came to a pretty similar conclusion. Only difference was we didn't have the board nuke. We had an extra set. We had a much larger hand and Rosin was still on board and we hadn't used Caesar yet, or Caesar wasn't vulnerable yet. Because if they Dark Ruler, it does get a little bit clunkier, right? Because if they Dark Ruler, you don't get your Rock effect to summon, but you still have the Snow Devil to summon the Rosin. So you do still get to some point of value. So like, let's say they do Dark Ruler you, you can activate this just to summon, right? You don't even need a Borg nuke. You can just deal 1800, summon the Rosin search. You can still get your Borger bounce back Caesar bounce back Rosin. And now we're back to having, sure, this is negated, but I still have my Caesar effect to pop. I still have my Borger effect to draw. Maybe that ends up going somewhere. A lot of versatility, a lot of diversity, a lot of decision makings makes this deck extremely hard. So yeah, that's just sort of the in-depth info session for the pure build and the main breakdown of the archetype. Now for the people that want to stick around for it, I'm going to show you what I played at the regional. And I did very well, had a lot of fun. This deck is so much fun. So this hand, you look at this hand, you'd say, okay, this is kind of a brick, right? And you're sort of right, it is, except it's not, because I'm going to special summon Kashtira Unicorn. This card is insane. Not just this format, but as long as Fiendsmith exists, Kashtira Unicorn is a card that you need to be looking at. But Brendan, the attributes don't line up. Sure, they don't line up. Doesn't matter. You know why? Because Kashtira Unicorn is worth so much more than just its attribute and its free body. Because what is it? I'm going to search. I probably wouldn't if I'm playing around Droll. I'd probably start with Mimigul Maker, but we're going to assume no Droll, no Nib, kind of like we did with the Vanquish Soul turn 1. I'm going to search Birth. So even if I do get Drolled here, I rip Requiem. If not, okay, perfect, we're fine. Now you'd think, oh, shouldn't you have summoned Fenrir first to get your Earth? Like, that's more important because you want to normal summon the Rosin. Well, you know, we'll get there. This might just be dead in my hand, and that's okay. Now we go Mimighoul Maker, right? We're going to resolve effect. We're going to choose Archfiend and Dragon. So they got Archfiend, I get Dragon. So we get the special summon the Dragon. Dragon effect. So here now we get to choose another choice. We get to choose either a Floodgate, that probably won't end up being a Floodgate, or interaction. Special from deck, book their monster. Very good. Here, because I want to show you as gimmicky as this can be, and I'm not making safe plays, I'm making fun plays, we're going to add the dungeon. So, activate Mimighoul Dungeon. Dungeon effect to search. We're going to add Mimighoul Archfiend. But we'll have a lot of fun. Watch this. Okay. I'm about to commit the cardinal sin of playing Vanquish Soul. Not normal summoning Rosin. Normal summon. Declare effect. It's going to flip this. This is going to make me draw one card. It's going to rip a card out of their hand. Right? Because that's what the Mimighoul does. Your opponent draws one card. Send one card from your hand to the graveyard because it's his flip monster. Give control of this to me, right? So now I get control of this monster. He's down a card in hand. I'm up a card in hand. And new chain, his monster, the Mimighoul, activated an effect. Here goes Unicorn effect because you just activated a monster effect. There goes your Requiem. Bye-bye, Fiendsmith. And just because I'm very evil, I also just turned Thrust on. The Thrust that I drew off of this Archfiend, he's activated a monster effect. I can set whatever I want. I can set the trap card that I didn't search off of Dragon. I can set Snow Devil if I want to, right? Really, really good synergy there. So now we're going to go and keep playing. Birth, being able to banish cards from graveyard is also good, but we're going to see where it comes up later on. Like why I love Unicorn so much. And like, if you can play a deck that can play Unicorn, you should. Because not only does it rip from extra deck in a format where Fiendsmith getting that one Requiem out of the extra deck is so important. Extra decks are so tight right now that a Unicorn, even if you get drolled on it, can be extremely punishing. But also Birth turns it into not just interaction with their graveyard, but a free summon. I can now link off this Unicorn and just bring it back. It's just free link fodder. It turns Unicorn by itself makes 2 bodies and an extra deck rip, which is insane. So we'll link 1 into, where are you? Requiem. Requiem effect. Summoning Mr. Fiendsmith. Link 2 into sequence, everyone's favorite Fiendsmith combo, declare, yada, 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 go through. And this is the part that I love. Summon Lacrima summon Fiendsmith, overlay for Beatrice. I don't care about Nib. I've got Birth, right? I still have Fiendsmith and Grave. I can make some plays if it happens. Plus, again, we're not going and we're pretending Nib doesn't exist in this. Obviously, if we're trying to respect Nib, we would have made alternate plays, maybe made Caesar there because we can just link with these. But detach. And this card needs to be banned because this card lets me do this. Beatrice and Rosin. That's why I didn't need to normal summon this card. And now we can just link 3 into Princess. Princess effect, summon Rosin. Rosin effect. Grabbing whatever we want. Thrust. I'm probably going to thrust into Mimighoul Room, so we'll actually grab Mad Love here. Link 4 into Ambler. I think this card doesn't get enough respect. I like Ambler a lot. I like the fact that if it gets destroyed, like I could even summon it to a Rosin column here. Because Rosin destroys all monsters in its column, so it can destroy my Ambler as well. If this card's destroyed, you can target a link 3 or a lower monster in either graveyard and special summon it. I won against a Snake Eye Fiendsmith opponent because they access code popped Ambler. I summoned IP from his graveyard, and then quick effect IP to link summon into Underworld Goddess using his access code. It's insane. This card's so good. I summoned an SP from his graveyard. Now I have an SP that's mine to just use. This card's nuts. Plus he's big because he gains attack. This also deals with Runic because I can out skill drain and Whitewoods because if a link 3 or lower is destroyed on the field by battle or card effect, well, this is in your graveyard. Banish it, non-targeting, destroy a card. very good into floodgates that are problematic for you. Rank 1 into Rock of the Vanquisher, Rock Effect, Special Summon Mad Love Effect. So now we get to choose. We can either search the Snow Devil, which is totally reasonable because I foresee us getting a Dark in hand next turn. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get our board nuke off of it, and I don't think we even really want to. So I'm actually going to go for continue. Because what's more important here is not the Snow Devil pop. What's more important here is actually the Unicorn rip. And I don't want to summon Birth. I don't want to use Birth to summon back Unicorn to link 2 into SP when I don't have to. I can just continue, target Rosin, right? Or what I can do is, if I really feel like it, we'll keep this Engrave. I forgot to use Lacrima Burn, but Lacrima would be burning and putting this to extra deck for 12. Forgot about that part. I skipped over that part. I was so excited, but yeah, that's pretty important. So we can add this, right? Just in case we get nibbed or something. This is additional nib protection. But we'll actually go Fiendsmith Effect, extra deck, special summon. And you could even be greedier here and play like Chaos Angel or something. I think that's a little cope, but it's fun, I guess. Link 2. And there is SP. So now if they Nibiru, you can just go, okay, I'll chain SP, target Rock, and SP. I'm fine. Birth, summon back Unicorn. Also, if they Nibiru you, Thrust is even better because you can now search something that you can activate rather than like a talent to hand rip. But we will Thrust. We will get the Mimighoul Spell Trap because this card is insanely good. And so now this end board is pretty terrifying. We've already ripped the Requiem. We can rip something else. We have an SP Little Knight. We have a Princess that's live. Rock to add or to special. I can, if I want to, set this continue, which might do. Just because I think Rock to add back will probably end up being correct for attribute count. If I wanted to, instead of setting the Mimighoul trap, I could also set Snow Devil. Even though I searched continue, I can still set Snow Devil, right? Because Rock, I'll just add back this Mad Love. That's all 3 attributes in hand. Earth, Fire, Dark. Great. Everything goes wrong. They Dark Ruler and things just feel bad. I can at least just Snow Devil for your life savings. Or, right, if something else goes wrong, I don't get a chance to Rock summon Rosin or something goes weird. Having the Snow Devil to summon the Rosin from my hand can be nice, but I think I'm pretty content with this end board right here. I think this is fine. This is pretty good. This is like my typical, this was the average game end board. And then obviously pass to them. I've got continue to summon Rosin, so draw standby main, activate a card, chain will add this to hand. They'll do whatever, summon this to there or there, depending on if they summon a monster to either of the zones. We'll summon here because it's their EMZ. Back to search. And there is either a Dark to draw one with Borger or Caesar, which is what I'm going to be doing. So now I have a Rosin column pop. I can Unicorn rip another card whenever I want to. I've got an SP Little Knight on board. I've already used Rock Effect to add, but that's fine. If I ever need to use SP, I can just banish these both to get them out of harm's way. I have Princess Engrave, Amblo on field, Caesar's pop, Mimighoul Room to summon to their field and non-targeting book, right? And a Floodgate that says they can't normal summon as long as they control a set monster. And since this is summoning to their field, a set monster, they can't flip it that turn. So if I didn't want to give them the chance to normal summon, if that's just like a really bad thing for me, I'll just in draw phase Mimighoul Room, and I'll give them Dragon. Oh, wait, whoops. Yeah. I'll give them Dragon. We'll set... move there. This way they can't, we actually might put it there. This way they can't summon to an uncomfortable column for me. Like I want them to summon to columns where I can summon Rosin, right? Here, locks them out of using this column. But then additionally, they can't normal summon until this is face up. They can't attack with monsters that they special summon that turn until this is face up. And if they do special summon, I can manually flip it with Maker and Graveyard because Maker banishes to flip a monster. And so that what that'll do is trigger this to destroy all face-up monsters they control and then give me back the body. Unicorn rip another card from their extra deck, right? So now I've board nuked them anyway without the Snow Devil trap because of Dragon. They didn't get a chance to normal summon until I basically cleared their board for them. Unicorn gets its guaranteed rip. I still get my Caesar. I still get to do the continue summon back, Rosin, Rock, add back, Mad Love. I'm still super comfortable. There's a million ways to go through this. Very, very dynamic, very exciting. I love this list. The best part of this list, and that was just a little bit of gameplay of the average turn, is let's go back to the list. Original. Is that every single copy of Engraver is Rosin. So what are you not seeing in this list? Well, you're not seeing Rhoda, Reinforcements of the Army, the quintessential Vanquish Soul Searcher card to get you Rosin. You're not seeing Durandals. Let's play into Droll too hard. And we actually, it's nice to see Rosin in hand. We don't really need to see Rosin in hand, right? Because we can just get it off of Beatrice. So seeing Fiendsmith is actually seeing Rosin for free. Seeing Dragon is actually seeing Rosin for free. Because if I normal summon Dragon, I can search Maker, right? Maker gives them this or this. If it gives them this, I get 3 bodies on board. If it gives them this, if it gives them this, I get 3 bodies on board. If it gives them this, I get either a Floodgate or a card that non-targeting books and can make things uncomfortable for them. So like no matter what, I'm getting either extra bodies, and honestly, Maker by itself is full Fiendsmith combo. So Maker is access to Vanquish Soul Engine. Fiendsmith is access to Vanquish Soul Engine. Dragon is access to Vanquish Soul Engine, and Vanquish Soul Engine is access to Vanquish Soul Engine. Unicorn is 2 bodies by itself, so Unicorn plus normal summon Lurie is full combo. Unicorn plus normal summon Fenrir is full combo. I got Unicorn search Birth, normal Fenrir, Fenrir search Fenrir for an Earth, just to have in hand the advantage, right? Link 2 into Closed Heaven, Link 1 into Requiem, and then I just do normal plays, right? And I can even Birth summon back the Unicorn to make the sequence, to make the math line up for being able to sequence fuse into Lacrima summon back, make Beatrice send Rosin, Princess summon back Rosin. And then what I do is I just Rosin search Xiaolong in that case, because I can just reveal Rosin to summon Xiaolong. There's the free body, link 4 into Amblawhale. I still get my rock add back Rosin for next turn. Mimighoul, all being Earth, very helpful. Unicorn Birth should be in every single deck that can play it, personally, in my opinion. Obviously, it was good, and Fiendsmith was playing. Sorry, not Fiendsmith. Snake Eyes was playing it before Fiendsmith came out. They've since cut it because Fiendsmith came out. But Fiendsmith is such a look at this. I'm using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extra deck spots for this Fiendsmith engine. That's insane. And every single deck that plays Fiendsmith is at least playing 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5, but this could be Desiree as well. Like one of these, I guess 2 of these don't have to be there, but at least 5 extra deck spots belong to Fiendsmith. And if you can Unicorn rip a Requiem, oh my god, so good. So good. But yeah, the fact that this, sometimes this, and this all turn into full combo and access to the Vanquish Soul is wild to me. And normally you wouldn't be playing Dragon at 3. Like a lot of people are just playing Dragon at 1. But no, what you want to normal summon Dragon. Dragon normal summon search Maker, that's guaranteed 2 or 3 bodies. I mean, you're either guaranteed 3 bodies, and they've activated a monster effect to trigger like a Thrust or a Talons or a Unicorn, or it's getting you either a Floodgate or guaranteed interaction on their turn. Normal summon Dragon, this is nuts. Honestly, I hope if nothing else, if people that don't even love Vanquish Soul that much walk away from this video with something, it's that I think Unicorn and Mimighoul have a lot of space to just exist in this format in the form of engines and other decks. Like you could play a lot of different decks and just play a Mimighoul and Unicorn package. You don't even need the Fenrir. I was siding out the Fenrirs a lot because Unicorn's a free summon that replaces itself. So you get 2 summons out of 1 unicorn. Plus Birth. Can interact with the graveyard well if you want to. Could be a potential extra deck rip, right? Dragon can get you to Fiendsmith combo just for free by itself. And these cards, the Mimigools, can make Unicorn live. Can force a Unicorn. There's times where you're playing against Tempai, you summon this card right here, you do a Mimigool card interaction to them, you rip out Transcendent, their turn gets so much worse. On their turn, if you Unicorn rip out Trident, they basically have to go into a Black Rose play, which is hilarious because you can keep them off Black Rose, especially since you could Floodgate them or Book, right? It just makes things really uncomfortable for a lot of decks, especially something like Tempai, which I do expect to survive past the ban list. So if we're looking at the future of this deck, right, I think that there is a Mimighoul Kashtira build for it in the future. Beatrice is probably going to get banned, so there's going to need to be some evaluation after the ban list. Beatrice existing is what makes all of this sort of mesh together super well, so I'm hesitant to commit to this long term. But there's a million ways to go about it. Like you can cut like basically if Beatrice does get banned, you can cut the Fiendsmith stuff. You can shave the Mimighoul stuff down to 1 dragon, 2 Archfiend, 2 Maker. Still play everything that we have here, right? So that's cutting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's cutting 8 cards out of the main deck, right? So you go down to 36, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards out of the extra deck. You do whatever you want with. And you can just throw these shifters into the main, right? And just play Vanquish Soul, Mimighoul, Kashtira. And it's totally fine. Completely viable. The hidden synergy that I think I might have mentioned earlier is that Xiaolong can flip a set Archfiend or a set Dragon. Because this card, remember you reveal fire to change battle position? Let's say I give you this Archfiend face down. Let's say my hand is, I guess we can actually simulate this, right? Let's say my hand is something along the lines of, actually, this works. But we'll be a little bit cleaner because this works because you just go Special Unicorn, grab Birth, normal Dragon, go nuts. We can actually make this super minimal, so because I'm just trying to prove a point. Let's go. Where are you? Rosin and Archfiend. All right. So along the lines of something like this, which Archfiend could be Dungeon, it could be Dragon with Maker or Dragon with, because this basically Archfiend could be Dragon or Archfiend or Dungeon or Maker. So here we just go. Actually, I'm going to summon this to their field first. Reason being is I don't want them to imperm my Unicorn. That also is funny. They can't imperm you if you give them a Mimighoul, and they will imperm this card a lot. So we're just gonna give them Archfiend first, Unicorn effect to search, yada yada yada. Adding Birth, cool. Activate Birth, normal Rosin effect to search. Remember, this was the 4-card hand. We could literally have any other card in hand. That would be fine. And Archfiend could be any other Mimighoul card except for the trap. The only thing that has to be the same is like a Talents or a Thrust, Unicorn, things like that, right? So this could technically be 2, it could be Thrusts, or this could be one of the 3 copies of Unicorn that I play. And then Rosin, I play 3 Rosin. So something adjacent to these. It could even be like Staker Soul Ash. Like there's a bunch of variations. This hand doesn't need to be like perfectly scripted like this. There's a variety of different types of hands like this that could do something like this. So Rosin, search, Xiaolong, declare effect to make itself unable to destroy by card effects. We will then declare Xiaolong effect to special summon itself. Link 1. Where are you? There you are. Rock to add from grave. And now we go Xiaolong effect, reveal fire to flip the Archfiend. Archfiend effect, I'm going to draw one. I'm going to rip a card out of their hand, and then I'm going to get control of this here, right? For free body. So now they're down one card. I'm up one card. I get a free body, and they've activated a monster effect. So rip a card from their extra deck. Bye-bye Requiem. Bye-bye Transcendent. And just because they activated a monster effect in my main phase, I'll look at your hand and I will take another card out. So I've now hand looped you for 2 and ripped a card out of your extra deck because you didn't play any cards. I don't know. I like it quite a bit. And then here, just because we're feeling, we'll probably keep the Xiaolong. Just because we're feeling like it. I guess if we haven't used Unicorn yet, we keep the Xiaolong. Like if we haven't extra deck ripped, but I don't know why, because we just manually did it with that. So, and then we just go boom. Fiendsmith, go Burr. All right. Then this is a combo that you're going to be seeing a lot of in the future, so I don't need to go through all of it. But basically, yep, that was by itself totally nuts. You've been hand looped for 2. I have full knowledge of your hand outside of what you're top decking. Extra deck ripped. I'm going to extra deck rip again on the next turn. I have Rosin in hand for follow-up. Drawing this kind of sucked, but like at this point, it doesn't even really matter. Like if I don't win this game, they must have had the craziest hand of all time, or just some really good top deck. But yeah, so basically the TLDR is Unicorn plus Dragon equals I give you a Mimighoul, flip it, Talents is live, take a card. Plus I'm ripping one when I flip some in this. So yeah, that's just off of 2-card combo, right? Now, obviously better decks exist because they have 1-card combos. This deck sort of has 1-card combos, not as directly as other decks do, right? Now, Unicorn exists as its own powerful entity. 1-card combos exist in the sense that, like, this hand is okay, right? This hand's obviously not great. I can still normal summon Luri, go full Fiendsmith combo. I don't need to normal summon this Rosin. I can still search Birth. Mimighoul Room, just by itself, is a powerful card. Ash Blossom, good. Like, I'm very comfortable here, even though I drew the Luri, and a card that is typically considered a brick. Let me give an example of, yeah. So, Maker by itself, 1-card combo. Fiendsmith Engraver by itself, 1-card combo. Stake Your Soul. Not necessarily 1-card combo unless I have a fire to reveal, which here I don't, but that's fine. Summoning an Earth from deck is completely okay because it just is a body, right? And any 2 bodies makes access to Rosin, makes full combo. All right, so Maker. So because Maker is full combo, that means Dragon is full combo. So Dragon's a 1-card starter. Maker's a 1-card starter. If Dragon and Maker are 1-card starter, so is the card that can get you to Dragon, which can get you to Maker. So Dungeon, Dragon, Maker. So that's 7 cards are 1-card starters. 3 copies of Engraver, right? That's more 1-card starters. So that's what, 10? Tracked makes 11. Normal summon Luri, while ugly, makes 12. Stake Your Soul, reveal fire. I wouldn't call that a 1-card combo because you do require the fire. But Stake Your Soul, reveal any of the attributes plus a normal summon is full combo. So there's a lot of versatility here. Obviously, it's not the perfect deck, and I wouldn't say that I'm breaking the meta by any means, but I think this is really fun, very dynamic. And if you like Vanquish Soul, I know it feels like I've taken Vanquish Soul out of Vanquish Soul. That is not the case, because as I made reference to earlier, I had a lot of really long games. I had a 47-minute game 1 against Ritual Beast. I had a 40-minute game 1 against Fiendsmith Snake Eyes. I had a 36-minute game against Vanadium Fiendsmith. Like, I had these really long games because even though it looks like I'm doing what everybody else is doing, right? Vomit your hand onto the board turn 1. That's not what's happening. I'm adding follow-up. Vanquish Soul has a ridiculously good grind game. Fiendsmith has a very good grind game. So even though I'm not getting as much value out of the Mimighoul stuff post turn 1, that's fine. That's totally fine. The Mimighoul stuff is there to facilitate Fiendsmith, which gets me to facilitate. Basically, it's Mimighoul gets me Fiendsmith, gets me Vanquish Soul, right? Which interacts well with Mimighoul. Kashtira interacts well with Mimighoul. Kashtira by itself also can get me to Fiendsmith, which gets me to Vanquish Soul. Like, these all feed into each other. Everything feeds into each other. Everything complements each other. There's a lot of synergies. There's a lot of dynamicism, if that's a word. I don't even know. So yeah, it's just something to think about for all you Unga Bunga pet deck combo players out there, and this is something that you don't even need to take with just Vanquish Soul, right? We could take Vanquish Soul out of this completely and play the Unicorn, Fiendsmith, Mimighoul stuff, and then play some other engine here, and it's totally viable as long as that engine starter is a fire to summon off of Beatrice with Princess. I don't know what decks have that. Vanquish Soul does. I guess in theory Salamangreat does, but I don't know why you would do it with Salad. Snake Eyes, obviously. This Infernoid? Infernoid, maybe? That could be an interesting one. There's a lot of options out there. I don't know. I enjoy making silly pile decks like this, but yeah. So thank you for watching this stream. Thank you for listening. Thank you for chiming in. Oh no, I missed out. My lo-fi beats for Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh no. I had lo-fi beats going the whole time and they just stopped because I was getting so excited I didn't pay attention. Ah, it sucks. I'll also be releasing this stream. I'll probably edit it to make it a little bit neater. But I'll be releasing this stream as a YouTube video on Team Top Cut, my Yu-Gi-Oh team, for which I am streaming through our YouTube channel. We also have on that YouTube channel right now the deck profiles for the Pure Sprite, no Fiendsmith. Obviously, you know, the Toad stuff. Deck list from top 8 at the Hollywood Regional. They got 3rd place, and then the Runic Whitewoods 8th place from that event as well. And then Wednesday I should be filming the U-Bell deck list. That got 2nd place on that as well. Other than that, check out Solo Games on YouTube. He's also got deck profiles on there from some of the other topping lists, the Tempai, the Gimmick Puppet FTK, and I think the Fiendsmith Snake Eye, one of the Fiendsmith Snake Eye lists, the top there as well. We've got Edison commentary tracks that we're posting on our YouTube channel as well. Those are actually a lot of fun for me to do. I don't know if they'll be as fun for other people to listen to, but I sure enjoy making them. I make them with one of our team members, Trey. He's very good. Yeah. Oh, and we offer coaching. So should be able to find the link both there and on our YouTube videos. Now, coaching can be a little bit of a taboo subject for a lot of people, and I get it. We offer a free session, free intro session to anybody that wants to try it, anybody that's open to trying it. Seriously. We think that a lot of people can benefit from coaching. You know, you might think that you're better than that, or, oh, I don't need coaching, or, oh, I don't want to pay for coaching. A little help can go a long way, and sometimes an outside perspective can be very beneficial. I mean, we have one of our members on our team, Hunter Lloyd. He's top-aided NATS's and YCS's. Like, he's very good, and he'll give you a perspective that you may never have had before. He'll be able to help you learn what it's like to be somebody who's gone that far or plays that consistently at that level. I've been a coach for years at this point. I coached Ohio State's team for a couple years. You know, we've got some experience at Edison coach Trey Johnson, William Johnson, top 32 with Salamangreat at YCS Richmond. Also has been doing very well at a lot of Edison events recently. So we got a little bit of everything. You know, great round the clock attention if you guys need anything or have any questions. Free intro session to see if coaching might even be your thing, if you might be comfortable or if you could benefit from coaching. Obviously that free session, we could always walk away from it with like, oh no, they seem good, they don't need it, or they wouldn't really benefit from any of us. Or maybe it's, hey, here's the direction we think you should be moving in. We can provide that for you, or if you want to go find that somewhere else, you can. I know that, you know, we've been getting at least one new coaching person or coachee a week since we started a couple weeks ago, which has been really exciting. At least one, sometimes we'll get 3 a week. And they all seem to be doing very well. I like talking to them about how they're doing at locals and really sort of helping see their progress. So yeah, cool. Thank you all for joining me. This was really cool. I've been wanting to get into this and really just kind of do a in-depth long talk about Vanquish Soul for a long time. That's our Team Top Cut logo. This was really cool. This was really cool for me to do. Even if other people don't find this interesting, I had a great time. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. Good night. Brendan out.